The events of this story begin in one of the companies that lives by the following slogans for employees. Result above all, work without results is worth nothing. If you don't want to work, leave before complaining. Work on yourself. Orders often sound, everything must be ready by morning. Management often threatens employees with dismissal and coldly says that there is already a queue for their place. In reality, the company has turned into a sweatshop. Employees often have to sleep right at their workplaces. William wakes up in a cold sweat and cannot understand whether it was a dream. He overslept again, so drowsily and confusedly begins to get ready for work. On the way, colleagues greet him, and one of them, an elderly man with a thick beard, asked if William was late for work again yesterday. MC replies that due to instructions from head Barnett, he had to prepare a report. Already at his workplace, the bearded man hands William another order from the Avert family. William, thank you for this. The bearded man simply could not believe his eyes how sincerely the clients love them. He says that taking additional orders is not bad, but if the main monthly plan is not fulfilled, there will be problems with the head. When colleagues near the stand, according to the plan and tasks, look at the next figures, they realize that these plans are completely unattainable. William clearly knows what is happening and understands well what the real situation here is. Diving headfirst into work, MC takes another order, a chair for restoration, and during William's inspection, he is outraged by the rough repairs made by someone earlier. The protagonist definitely knew that this chair was from Miguel's village. It belonged to Grandma Jess, who said that her knitting chair had broken. After examining the item, William decided to replace the armrests, round them off, and make the armrest a bit more comfortable for the hands. Bit of backstory: William works at the Barnett Trading Company, one of the largest in their kingdom of dolls. The company trades everything from spoons to weapons, and the clients range from peasants to aristocrats. William works in the company as a craftsman. His only skill is craftsmanship, and in general, craftsmanship is quite common in the kingdom. There are so many craftsmen like William that he has nowhere else to go, only here, and he feels like he is just drifting with the river's current. The bearded man's voice is heard. Done, take it. And he hands over the repaired chair to the couriers to be taken further, while goods are loaded onto horse-drawn carts and delivered directly to customers. With the words, "Don't be late," the cards instantly set off to the recipients. It is precisely the lightning-fast logistics that allowed this trading company to grow so much. A voice rang out throughout the company: "Work harder, your goods will enrich this trading house." From the first tone of the voice, William understood. The head of Barnett is already starting his inspection of the workplaces. "Come closer," he shouts. "Hey, William." The hero turns around. The head is already nearby, saying that this month William again did not meet the plan, and the hero apologizes. The boss asks if the documents he requested yesterday are ready, demands a quicker response, and tells him, "Remember, replacing anyone is not a problem." A memory flooded William. William remembers that he is no longer alive. Once he worked at an exploitative company and died from overwork. He is now alive, which means his reincarnation has occurred. The boss's voice, "Damn it, William, bring the documents," brought MC back to reality. "Yes, yes, I'm coming," William replies and hurries to prepare the documents. Already in the boss's office, Barnett reviews the documents and persistently asks about the client base and trend analysis. William answers that he has them. At the same time, looking at Barnett's face twisted with dissatisfaction, he realizes he is exactly the same as the boss from his past life. Barnett raises his head and, with a smile on his face, announces that William is fired. The protagonist, confused, asks again, "How is this possible?" Barnett adds that his son will take the position and take the business into his own hands. The boss sincerely thanks William for his service. What does all this mean? Boss Barnett cannot calm down William. The boss says that William works too slowly and failed to meet production plans, and Barnett adds that the company does not need such worthless craftsmen. MC nervously justifies himself and explains that he gives clients exactly what they really need. Barnett replies, "The client will not pay for what does not exist. Buyers do not demand quality, they will buy what is in stock. We must stick to the slogan, cheaper, faster, and in larger quantities than anyone else." The boss sums up. That's all. William froze from the decision made. For a moment, he was breathless. Barnett advises MC, "Pack your things, and if everything is clear, go." The boss turned to his son and asked him to take on the task, but not to forget William's regular clients were the most valuable and wealthiest in the company. Barnett continues, "William's products somehow sold out, although they were almost no different from other goods, but he is too slow, so he cannot squeeze the maximum from rich clients, and the boss asks his son to take the vacant position and shake all the money out of the rich. Valuable clients attract other valuable clients, and his son must succeed," Barnett advises. "Don't worry, Dad," replies the son. William leaves the boss's office and exhales sharply like, Walking down the corridor, he recalls which personal belongings he needs to take. Already in the office, William begins to pack. First of all, he takes the dusty shinjo from the top shelf of the cabinet, the sacred staff of Ristake. Once the leader of the S-rank adventure group gave him a rare artifact that allows controlling the magic of all elements. William kept it just in case, but decided that magic was not his business, so he never used it. William thinks about the word magic, but he has been reincarnated. This is real magic. It is only possible in a world where magic exists. When William returns home, the familiar Pi-Dash can be heard. That's Ruddy, the eagle owl, greeting him. Companion from the herd sits on William's hand. The main character turns to the owl and realizes that it has probably been waiting for him for a long time and silently asks himself what to do next. William reflects, even having been reincarnated in another world, he again found himself in the office of some scoundrels and almost went the same way. Enough of living like this, he thinks. From now on he decides to live differently. Having gathered his things and taken with him the sacred staff of Ristak and Ruddy, he sets off on the road with the thought to live fully and make the most of the second chance he has been given. William decides to say goodbye to his regular clients before leaving, and at the same time takes a chair and definitely visits Grandma Jess. Thus begins his first step into a new life. As William planned, he first visits Grandma Jess, gives her the restored armchair, and wishes her good health, while saying goodbye to all the neighbors. Next in line is the Averg family. You will not be able to fulfill additional orders and will have to apologize for this. Arriving at the Averg family castle, William bitterly announced that he had written a resignation letter and would no longer be able to carry out orders. The head of the family was simply stunned by this news. He says that without William he will not be able to manage and will simply disappear. The main character apologizes, sincerely regrets, and offers to work in his place. The head of the family clarifies, the latter is the son of that very Barnett. He has never heard anything good about him. Earlier he served in the night order to attract more attention from women. He did so much with them that he was expelled, and eventually he ended up in his father's trading company. Ediver begins to explain that what William does really differs from the work of other masters. Although the forms are similar, he meticulously refines every detail because above all, he cares about the one who will someday own these things. Showing a sword bought from William, a living example of such confirmation, the head says it was created taking into account the traits of the future owner. The handle is well thought out, and the balance is perfect. William can outdo any blacksmith in skill, said Avert with admiration. MC replies that he created this incredible sword, thanks to meeting an amazing master from whom he learned. The chapter states that besides liking William's things, he did not try to gain the trust of his house, the Faith, and he likes William's sincerity. He and his family sincerely regret that further cooperation is impossible. William, thank you for such generous words. The bird's head persistently tries to find out what William plans to do next. MC begins to answer, actually, and slowly walks away down the road. At that moment, the father's voice is heard, and the family's daughter enters the room. She calls herself Limit. The father again persistently asks his daughter, did you hear that conversation with William? Next, EMC's path lies in the kingdom of Merkis. Arriving at the place, William suddenly realized that he had not been in these parts for a very long time. In the gloomy castle of Merkiv, he is greeted by Huri, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Merkiv. He angrily receives William's visit after a long absence and brings unpleasant news about leaving the trade guild, and even worse says that the latter will become the successor. William understands the minister's reaction, and in his thoughts asks himself how many more times he will have to see the same scene. But the main character says that he came not only with news, but also with a request. The minister asks what it is about, and William explains. In the village of Bergen near the capital, he has a small house in the mountains, and he wants to open a workshop there. The minister became interested in the workshop in their country, and William says that at first, he will not rush to set it up. The minister immediately agrees with joy. After all, he is very pleased that such a talented craftsman as William will live in their country. The minister promises to send a letter of approval to the village of Bergen. He wants to work hard and not hold back. William expresses his deepest gratitude in response. Finally, William and Ruddy are on site in the village near the hut, and William says that this will be the beginning of their new life. The hut is a small house, not made of boards, which has become very crooked over time. Parts of the roof have crumbled, and the building clearly needs work. Ruddy accepts this new home without much enthusiasm. Standing in front of the house, William thinks that the hut is so-so, but quite suitable for a start, and the elder of the village of Bergen has already given permission, and MC says that he is a craftsman and will manage the cleaning himself. But today, after a long journey, they need to have dinner quickly and go to bed immediately. At dawn, William was still sound asleep, and suddenly in his dream there was a knock on the door. Without getting out of bed, he asks, "Who is there?" In response, silence. He approaches the door and slightly opens it. In front of him stood a beautiful blonde woman who said cheerfully, "Good morning, William." The main character froze, confused and stunned, and asked again, "Mrs. Limit, how did this beautiful lady end up here?" William does not understand. Limit says that from now on she wants to make a pact of loyalty with him. "How what?" William asked again. He cannot believe these words. So quite unexpectedly, the second life of MC began. With inspiration and a spark in her eyes, she exclaims that she has found him. The main character asks again, "What are you doing here?" Limit began to explain that after William left, the Averg house was not pleased with either Barnett Trading Company or the new manager who came last. Limit says that their family terminated the contract with Barnett. Hearing this, the host's eyes widened. His mouth dropped open. He could only exclaim one question: "What?" At the same time, witnesses to the conversation between William and Limit were the lady's maid standing aside behind her back, and Ruddy, who was watching everything from the roof of the house. It all started a few days ago. When the Averg family arrived at the Barnett Company, they were greeted by Mr. Barnett himself with his son, and he promised that from now on everyone at Barnett would do everything possible to satisfy any requests. Entering last, he slyly glanced at the Averg family, and addressing Mrs. Limit with special delicacy, stated that he was glad to meet them for the first time. At the same time, he took the lady's right hand, pulled her to himself, and kissed it, saying that he was the last Barnett. "Nice to meet you." Limit was so embarrassed and confused that she could only giggle in response. The Averg family was completely dissatisfied with how the meeting was going. It was evident in his gaze and on his face, and Lennet was also very upset. Barnett announced that the order was ready, and proudly added that he himself, entering last, had fulfilled it personally. And at that very moment, the workers brought in boxes with packing doors. Last brought out the order. There were choruses for the personal protection of the Verg house. The Averg family grabbed the chorus in his hands and carefully examined the product. He asked with a serious, focused look whether head Barnett had checked the final finish, and Barnett responded briskly and cheerfully, "Yes, of course." William's design made it so that the chorus can be adjusted to the owner's body. The head of Verb continued speaking while seriously examining the finished product. "This chorus is not adjustable and touches the hand. You won't be able to properly swing a sword with it," he continued. Limit cast a brief glance at his father and felt his indignation. "The warriors of the Erg clan are like family to him," he continued, speaking in a raised voice. "He cannot put them at risk by providing crude and one-sided equipment." The head of Verg, already furious, declared that he saw neither sincere attitude towards work nor the honesty expected from a weapons supplier, and the attitude towards his daughter was completely unacceptable. Last went completely pale, and his gaze became sad. The head of the Virgin announced that he was terminating the contract. William listens to this story, stunned, his pupils dilated incredibly. Limit continues. After all this, the question about the future of the Averb Rose house hung in the air. She thought for a long time and decided to conclude an exclusive deal with William, and the place was suggested by Minister Gory. "Good," replies William, having listened to the story to the end. Limit sharply states, under the conditions in which William found himself, working is simply impossible. MC's gaze lowered his gaze from such an assessment by the lady. But Limit happily says that she is here because she wants them to continue cooperating and came to help. William wonders what she is going to do. Answers minimal, permission obtained from his father. MC explains what it means, and she will speak if William does not mind. "We all want to live here," the maids accompanying the mistress answer in unison. William opened his mouth in shock, and his eyes widened incredibly. "And yet she always dreamed of such a life," says Limit, and begins to spin in a dance with incredible pleasure. One of the maids said that the mistress always dreamed of an adventurous life, and that is exactly why this happened. A girl with long hair and formal clothes approaches the main character and says, "Mr. William, we haven't seen each other for a long time. This is Agnes, the senior maid in the Avert house." William is surprised by her presence, and she adds that she was ordered to accompany the young lady by order of the head of the family. Agnes begins to tell that the young lady was terribly worried about Mr. William when he left the company, and now she is delighted that she was able to meet him again. While the conversation was going on, the maids were busily unloading the luggage brought with them on carts. Agnes adds that the Averg family, of course, will support Mr. William, but they themselves really want to help, and William sincerely thanks them, but he prefers to conscientiously do his job and simply live a quiet second life, and says these words with a touching look, closing his eyes. "What do you mean?" August tries to clarify tiredly. "No, nothing," William replies, turns and leaves, thinking what a wonderful morning it is today. This is how it was. Things were going like this, and he was going to lead a quiet, peaceful life. Shouts nearby come on, pull. The major begins to break camp 10. They work burning with inspiration and passion. William looks at them, and a spark lights up in his dull gaze. A smile appears on his face. When MC recalls the previous years of work, he seems unable to remember any period when he worked in a team. He sees Limit and the maids rejoicing over another tent set up and thinks that he must try to live this life differently. William was completely lost in dreams when Limit could not hold back and fell to the ground with another tint and a piercing scream. The maids rushed to her and could only exclaim in surprise, and as she got up, she thought that setting up a tent is not a simple matter at all. William approaches them and says that 5 people will be cramped in this tent and that sleeping outside is dangerous. He continues, and Limit tries to contradict him. William approached closer, looked her in the eyes, and said that since Mr. Arverg agreed, and Mrs. Limit has such a desire then. The main character, with a catch in his voice, begins to ask everyone what they think about all moving together to his cabin. He is about to do repairs, and is already ready to add more rooms. For Limit, it was an unexpected but pleasant offer, and her eyes widened incredibly. She asks quietly she does not want to burden William. Won't they be in the way? MC cheerfully winks with his left eye and answers joyfully. It's always more fun in a big company. They will become a real team of adventurers. William raised his voice. A considerable amount of materials is needed for the expansion, so he asked for help, and everyone unanimously agreed. The forest stretched around, and in a short time they gathered a considerable pile of construction timber, after which William looked at the prepared materials and said that it would be quite enough. When everything was ready, Williams rushed to work, full of enthusiasm. He inspects the cabin and realizes, when everything is falling apart, it's not time to expand, it's time to start repairs. First, the main character removes all the destroyed and unusable elements from the building. Then the structure is reinforced. Limit and May watch with admiration as William works. She gazes out the window of the hut and drowns in her memories. Limit recalls how she was preparing for an important family event with the servant Agnes, but was in no mood at all, and Agnes then said that the mistress should not sulk, she is a beauty, and with such an expression all her charm would be lost. Limit tries to object. Agnes continued, "This evening there will be an important reception after all. It is for her that a suitor will be chosen." Schmidt obediently sat in front of the mirror, and Agnes kept talking and asked her not to think about running away anymore. Like last time, the lady was very offended by such words. Limit suddenly realized she is the only daughter in the Avert family. At various social events, noble people approach her and establish relationships not because of her, but to gain power over the Avert family through her father. No one really cares about her. Continuing to recall her past, Limit suddenly heard a voice behind her. "I have brought you the evening dress. It is ready." Turning around, she suddenly sees William right in front of her, surprised. Limit immediately tries on the dress. She looks at her reflection in the mirror with delight. Agnes and William hurry and hem the dress. William asks how Lady Limit feels in it. William begins to explain that the lady has a habit of gesticulating energetically during conversation, so he made sure that the embroidery on the cuffs looked impressive when she moved. Examining the cuffs of the dress together, William continues to explain. The image on the cuff is a fairy tale flower, a symbol of the flight of fantasy, purity, and freedom, and it means Tenbakoku. William adds that it was perfect for her, and Limit looks at him with a sparkle in her eyes. A voice sounds, and that's it. Limit returns from pleasant memories. In front of her is a new window and a completely renovated hut, unrecognizable. William cheerfully announces clothing restrictions. Their estate is, of course, still far away, but this shack will do perfectly for the night. The lady replies that she disagrees. This is a real refuge for adventures, breathtaking. The hut has completely transformed. It shines with fresh paint and smells of new building materials. It is no longer the old, neglected structure. William, Limit, and the maids enter the renovated hut. MC inspects the room and says it would be cool to furnish everything with furniture and other things, then it would be a real base. Limit is very pleased. She smiles, her eyes narrowed with satisfaction, and she sincerely thanks William. MC joyfully exclaims that it's time for dinner. Everyone worked so hard that they even skipped lunch. He says there is a river nearby, and in his opinion, you can catch fish there. Limit grabbed her face with her hands and thought. She had never been fishing before, but really wanted to try, so she actively supported this proposal. Then William suggests cutting a few branches and making their own fishing rods. And so they all head to the riverbank to fish. Agnes is the first to show her skills. She confidently handles the fishing rod and net, and the other maids watch her with admiration. William also notices Agnes is a true fishing master. Limit suddenly started biting, and from surprise she grabbed a stick with both hands and screamed. William got bitten. MC calmly responds. Lady Limit gently pulled you towards her. Due to inexperience, the fish jumps off the hook. William approaches the upset lady and reassures her, "Madam, next time everything will definitely work out." She turns to William with a request, and he in response asks to clarify what exactly it is about. Limit stood before William, and Shaylee lowered her gaze and asked him to stop addressing her formally. The MC is puzzled. The lady does not back down. She is younger than William, and it will be better if he starts addressing her as an equal. The protagonist tries to object. Limit can no longer stand it, and hysterically shouts that from now on any informal address is forbidden. William, scratching the back of his head and smiling, replies that everything is clear. The lady insists, just call her by her name. The main character, embarrassed and hesitating a little, says, "Meja." As soon as he finished, his lady praised him with admiration. From the river comes the splash of fish flapping. Ruddy says that the fish are biting, something must be done. William and Limit take the fishing rod together, and MC advises how to carefully pull out the fish. Meanwhile, in a completely different corner, Ari Takebana, the leader of the adventure group Moonlight, is leading another hunt. Fragile in appearance but incredibly agile, the girl adventurer with long dark hair, her right eye covered with a patch, and her weapon is an ice whip. She knocks out the Royal Harakros, the adventurers, accompanying her prove this with their reactions. She returned home. A large group of adventurers greets her, and is wildly happy not only about her return, but also about the decent pile of resources she brought from the hunt. Laston also joined the greetings. He addresses Lady Takebana and impatiently tries to find out how much she liked the whip he made. The lady passes by without casting him a single glance, and he is still staring at his product. Isn't it beautiful, after all, made from the skin of the sea crocodile moas? Next time he is interested in boots, and at the end he boasts about his own, supposedly made from the skin of a noble deer. He regrets dirtying such boots, but the situation is just terrible. Lasting cannot calm down and continues to find out if the lady liked his products, because he did not come to this wild backwoods in vain. Finally, he hears a sharp response from Uri. "This whip is good for nothing." Last just froze in surprise. He hands the whip to the last person and says that the attack power has not increased, it is completely insufficient. She adds something else, looking thoughtfully and seriously. This is by no means William's level, not at all. She no longer feels the strength she had before. The one who entered last, with a downcast gaze, wonders what could be so different about these whips. At that very moment, one of the travelers approaches and announces that a letter has arrived for Uri. Who exactly does Uri mean? The messenger explains from the house of Verg, the castle of the Verg family. A meeting is to take place here in the evening. Meanwhile, William and Limit are having a fun and productive time fishing. In the office of the Barnett Company, a powerful fist strike on the table sounded, and Mr. Barnett, sitting at his desk, shouts in furious anger, "What is happening? Why, damn it, are clients tearing up contracts with our guild one after another?" He continues, "What the hell are you doing, idle?" He shouts at the employees standing before him with bowed heads. Laston, entering, addresses him. He continues, "The leader of the Moonlight group recently received a letter from the House of Verg. She's a former client of William. Is the House of Verg plotting something against them?" "What?" Mr. Barnett is even angrier. He fears her and is plotting something behind our backs. Barnett shouts that he will not allow him to do whatever he pleases and demands that all this information be checked immediately and thoroughly. This is how Uri imagines it, as if she is already walking through the corridors of a Vert palace to a business meeting. She enters the conference hall and sees that besides her there are 3 other people here, and Mr. Freed announces that everyone is now gathered. Mr. Reverb begins the meeting by saying that all the most influential clients of Williams from various fields have gathered here. All present listen attentively. Freed continues to tell about the results of his investigation. He says that leaving William in the shadows any longer is an unforgivable loss of talent. At first glance, his work seems simple and uncomplicated, but they are thought out to the smallest detail, created with care for the client, convenient and beautiful. They all simply need him, Mr. Freed continues, so he asks for support by providing the necessary assistance. Mr. Saxon is a gray-haired old man with a thick beard and mustache, head of the Misty Green Island. Freed tries to find out his attitude to the situation, and Mr. Saxon replies that he highly values William's work and does not mind helping him because he is a good guy. Moreover, William is a good person. He does all this only because his daughter loves him. She understands people well. Probably this guy is really good. It seems so, Mr. Saxon, Freed said with a mysterious smile. And what about you, Mr. Tennis? Freed asked his next interlocutor. And what will the legendary blacksmith say? Rumor has it that he was the one who taught William the blacksmith's craft. Yes, it was really something to see when he worked with such zeal, Tennis replies. He is a respectable gray-haired man, wise from life, with an unshaven, not very well-groomed face and long eyebrows, hair gathered in a bun at the nape. Tennis continues that William has a talent for blacksmithing, he likes to create something, and he wants to help him develop further. And what does Aritakabana think? He asked the tennis player girl sitting nearby. Uri replied that her main weapon was created by William, and she had never seen anything better in her life. Where he went was a great mystery to her. Mr. Fried, calm and businesslike, suggests moving on to the main topic of conversation and begins to tell that a little earlier William came to say goodbye before leaving. Mr. Averg asked what William planned to do next, and he replied that he had a request for the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Go read from the Kingdom of Merkis. Maybe Mr. Gory knows where he is now, asked Mr. Saxon. Yes, replied Mr. Averg. He asked Limit's daughter to look after William and go through life with him. He himself could not leave home, so Limit set out on the road. She is already grown up. It's time for her to set out on the road. Fried continues, full of emotions. After these words, Aries' gaze changed. She was planning something. So he gave his daughter, thinks tennis, and Saxon begins to look askance at Fried with a serious, dissatisfied face. So they bypassed her, Erie decides. Saxon stammers and says he remembered urgent matters. He apologized and left the meeting. Tennis says he completely forgot to pass the task to his granddaughter. Old age is no joy. He cuts off the conversation and leaves. Erie regrets that she also can no longer stay, and they all leave the palace together. Fried sits alone at the table, supports his face with his hand, closes his eyes, and thinks that everyone thinks the same thing. At this time in William Limit's hut, she enjoys a cup of aromatic tea. She asks, William, what happened? He is busy preparing dinner, grabs a jar of spices, looks inside and says, we need to buy spices, more of them, and I want more variety in the food. William says that today they will go shopping, and then briefly ride to the port town of Bart. Will they go in her carriage? Limit asks. Then we will ask someone to look after her in the village of Bergen. She continues. At that moment a squeak is heard. It is Ruddy returning to them. And right before their eyes, Ruddy begins to grow, squeaking happily. William explains that Ruddy can grow so giant that people can live on him. Limit said, sweet little bird, and Pat gladly petted Ruddy on the head. The whole team comfortably settled on Ruddy's back and took off, and in a moment William shouted, I can already see, look. On the horizon, the shores and the port town of Bart were visible. After a successful landing, the friendly company, in a great mood, enters the town, which mainly consists of small one-story houses and has a port right within the city limits, with fishing boats lined up along the shore. They were landed ashore along the coast. First of all, everyone rushed to the city market and immediately noticed that it had become much livelier. William hears a voice behind him. Hello, William, how old are you? MC turns around. In front of him stands a roughly 50-year-old brunette with a thick beard and mustache. He smiles and introduces himself as Mayor Markham, and not hiding his curiosity asks, is this your fiancé? Continuing to look at his companion, Travel William. While William, Markham is stopping, MC asks not to joke, because he is next to the daughter of the Avert family. Verg, shouting in surprise to Markham, apologizes for the rudeness and manages to ask how William even managed to interfere in her affairs, then quietly whispers to Markham's ear and asks again, and MC says it's a whole story. William says with surprise that the market today is incredibly lively. Maybe since the last time he was here, something has changed in the city. Markham replies that magic deposits were discovered near the city. There are many more people, more shops, businesses are growing everywhere. Maybe William should think about opening his own shop, ask Markham. The unexpected question makes the main character suddenly stop and think. Limit, who accompanies him, instantly lights up with the idea. William, great idea, let's start our own business, she exclaims, and William calmly says, no. Saying goodbye, Markham asks William to think about the proposal. He is confident that everything will work out because he knows he can do it. William thinks about what to come up with that would sell well. Overall, he is concerned about what the locals want to buy, and he even closes his eyes, straining his brain in search of an idea. And suddenly it occurs to him. Today he came to buy groceries, and they all start wandering around the city market together. And now they happily follow with bags full of various goods. Limit says they bought quite a few vegetables, and William adds that later they can plow the land near the house and plant a garden. Limit says happily, thank you, replies MC, but without experience, even taking up the hoe is dangerous, so I suggest relying on our skills. Welcome, youth, says an old woman in a headscarf behind the fish stall. Looking at the stall, William cannot help but notice how appetizing the fish is there. What kind of broth will come out, adds the fish seller. Hearing the word broth, William, of course, thinks that broth is tasty. But if we could get some soy sauce, we could prepare sashimi and sea mussels. But in this world, it is not customary to eat raw fish. He continues to ponder. Another interesting thing is soy sauce, miso. If you grow soybeans in the field, then maybe you can make miso, he thinks further. Immersed in memories, William suddenly realizes how much he misses his grandmother's childhood dishes, and then someone throws out, "William, what happened?" interrupting Agnes's daydream. C returns to reality and answers, "Nothing special." He believes that since the memories of his past life returned, he is incredibly drawn to Japanese cuisine. Their company moves away from the market, and they see a fishing schooner unloading the catch. Approaching the unloading place, they are met by one of the fishermen. William was looking through the boxes with the catch, and suddenly something caught his eye. He shouted in surprise. "Is that a kraken?" he asked. "Yes, small krakens inhabit the local waters," the fisherman replied. "In winter they swim to the northern seas, and they grow to huge sizes," he continues. "Do they eat that, let me ask?" "No, who would eat such a horror? They constantly get caught in the net," the fisherman replied. He says that krakens devour fish right in the nets, and nothing remains except to grind it and use it as fish feed. "It's a pity," thinks William. After thinking, he asked if he could take it. The fisherman replied, "If you need it, take it, but what will you do with it?" William, with a smile, takes that crackle with him. At that moment, a large catamaran docks at the shore with a screech. Shouts are heard on the shore. "Mr. Saxon has returned. Hooray." Returning, Saxon confidently steps off the deck of his ship. Having said this, she turned to him and threw herself around his neck. Saxon asks her if Sonal behaved well during his absence. A tall young man greeting Saxon cheerfully says, "Welcome back, Dad." Saxon smiles in response and says, "Ganel, thank you for watching the house." Together, Sonal and Ganel ask if they will really get to see William. William and Limit stand in the yard near the house. William is crafting something from several gears and thinks that to make a turn, he will have to build a windmill. Limit peeks from behind and wonders. He just returned from the town of Habart and is already doing something, so what exactly is he doing? Just as MC was about to answer, suddenly quick footsteps were heard. William froze, listened intently, and puzzledly wondered who it could be. At that moment, a short brunette runs in and happily throws herself to hug him. She exclaims, "William Sonal." He recognizes the girl and responds with hugs. William is greeted by a tall, dark-haired young man. "Ganel, what are you doing here?" With these words, MC rushed to him. The expression on Limit S's face changes. She is very upset and does not hide it. "What happened, Limit?" William asks. "Ruddy, long time no see," he adds, and Sonal addresses the eagle owl, which flies upward. William gathered all the guests in the house and asked for a moment of attention. He introduced Sonal from Jade Island and her elder brother Genel, and the guests warmly greeted everyone present in response. Sonal began to tell that when her father returned from the trip, he asked her to help William. That's why she is here. Ganel says that he also wants to be useful to Lord William. "And what does that mean?" William asked in response. Present Limit says that Kira Shima is the leader of the Saxons, and William asks where she learned about them. Actually, Limit says that her father recently contacted all of Williams's former clients, even Saxon. They all gathered at the Avert family estate and probably discussed William. As she understood, everyone wanted to help him. "Help," thinks William. Sonal tells, as soon as her father heard that William was going to work, he immediately called him and his brother to come and help, and also Gondoladsu's father ordered to issue an order. William pondered. Limit added that the father probably told other clients about his situation, so there might be more guests. Understanding begins to awaken in William. He quietly thinks how nice it is to know that even after leaving Barnett's guild, people still need him, but he understands it. Now he no longer thinks that his second life will pass in silence and crafting. He looked at the whole company gathered in his house and realized that a considerable noise lies ahead. Gentle suddenly appears and sharply asks, "What did William just do?" The hero smiles and says he arrived just in time, asking if he wants to help a little. "Yes, of course," Ganel agrees. Limit and Sonal stand by the window. Ganel curiously asks what is happening, and William replies that it is still a secret and laughs. Sonal says that his brother has no skills, but loves to craft madly and always learned from William. Ganel and William approach the gear mechanism. Ganel examines the surface of the teeth and is amazed this is the same processing that William recently taught him. Exactly so, he recalls, and MC confirms it. They grab logs and immediately start crafting something. After some time, William notices with surprise that everything is almost ready, and then Agnes approaches them and says she is going to the forest for food. William cannot calm down. He worries if she will be okay. She asks him not to worry. Ganel asks Sonal to also go and help Agnes. Sonal agrees. They were asked not to go too deep into the forest. He wants to ask William a question, but does not dare. William is embarrassed. She wants Limit to go with him too. He tries to clarify, won't it be dangerous? Agnes assures that she will take care of Limit's safety, and Sonal will be with him. And the three go into the forest hunting. Already in the forest, Agnes notices the prey, pulls her boastful bow, aims and shoots. Sonal says that she considers Agnes a wonderful archer. Agnes goes to retrieve the prey. Limit peers into the depths of the forest and sees glowing lights in the darkness, resembling animal eyes. An experienced wild boar with huge tusks emerges from the darkness. She screams at the top of her lungs, Agnes. Rada sees the stranger and is ready to attack. He lunges at Limit. At that moment, the woman loudly shouts at Agnes. But Sonal manages to run up, jumps forward, kills the boar with her paw in the air with a kick, and it bounces back. So in the extreme case, if she is okay, she's scared and with a confused voice answers, "Yes, thank you." And then Agnes runs up to them. At that very moment near the house at the table, William and Gannel are talking. William is interested and surprised that Zaxxon sent 2 assistants at once, even Sonal, although it seems that 1 Gannel would have been enough, and Gannel explains that Sonal really wanted to meet William herself. William was sincerely surprised by this fact. Again, this will last. On Jade Island there are special minerals, so a bunch of people flock there. William, when he stepped onto the island, was not at all interested in the value of those minerals. He made various products from the local shimmering shells and gave people tools and knowledge to make life better. Gennel says that William knows how to win people over, so Sonal did not waste time. She was the first to make contact, and Gennel adds that she herself was openly sincere from the start. She has a sharp eye for people, continues Gannel. Sonal has excellent intuition, and William proved that he is a devoted person, and it seems he genuinely enjoys his work. Even his father began to trust William through Sonal after all. The daughter herself opened up to him, and William, of course, responded to that. Gandalf raises his voice and tries to explain that he wants to help and will definitely manage. He just thought and he rushed to help William. The general sums up. William hears voices and says, "It seems they have returned." They return and see the girls coming back with cool trophies. Limit shines with a smile on her lips. Sonal walks briskly, carrying a huge carcass of a wild boar, and next to her calm Agnes. Later, near the stall at the city market, "Welcome, come in." A dry crack is heard and again, "Come in." Gannel and Agnes trade, surrounded by a crowd of surprised and curious buyers. Meanwhile, at the Limit estate, he stood and watched in awe as the windmill turned, not believing how quickly they built that structure. William, together with Gannel, managed to build a dryer for producing dry cracking. After finishing the work, William sincerely thanks Gannel. He wouldn't have managed it himself. Gannel smiles in response and says that he learned a lot about gear processing during the work and is also grateful. The main character suggests placing bearings at the rotation points for better performance. They ask Gannel if those were bearings, and he replies, "These are parts with balls to make it spin easier." At the market, one of the buyers, an older man, asks, "What the hell is this dried kraken?" And Sonal says it's tasty and immediately starts biting pieces off the kraken's carcass. Limit presents the client with a dried crack and a paw on a plate and offers him a treat. The man takes the paw, bites it, and savors it, saying, "What a wonder, the longer you chew, the richer the flavor." This tasting attracts a crowd of buyers who, shouting, "Give me one, give me 2 more, want to try the new product." "Oh, William, a full house." A voice sounds behind him, and William turns around and sees Markham in front of him. He continued, "Who could have imagined that such a tasty delicacy could crackle so dryly?" William recalled events from past years and said that he once saw something similar in a port city. MC tells the mayor that when preparing the kraken, they spin it to dry it quickly, and if you fry it a little, it turns out incredibly tasty. "Oh, if only I poured some soy sauce on it," William murmurs thoughtfully. "So Alfie," the mayor asked again. "It doesn't matter," William replied. That day, trade was bustling. In the evening, a cool breeze blew from the sea. William walks along the shore with Ruddy on his shoulder and thinks that it is always so pleasantly breezy here. He gazes into the distance of the endless water surface and enjoys the beautiful view. He sees a small grove on the horizon and thinks that behind those trees is probably the capital of the kingdom, and the road straight through the forest is the shortest. As a result, at the current fair, all the dried crackers were completely sold out. After such a stressful day, the whole team finally sighed with relief. Limit turned to William, and William calmly replied, "If such a business brings good income, he really does not intend to sell the crackers themselves. You want to sell the dryer itself." Limit is stunned by this answer. William stands before the whole team and passionately explains, "If you dry the catch in this dryer and sell it, you can earn well, but that's just money. He wants people in the city to start drying fish themselves in this dryer and selling it." MC continues, "If others find out about this and crowds of visitors flood in, the business will become a local attraction, and they will be able to sell dryers to other cities. If the plan succeeds and dryers are sold, the lives of the locals will improve at least a little." After these words, Limit, Agnes, and Gannel look at William with admiration. In front of me is a screen, William. He turns around and sees Sonal, she says. Yes, you can eat it raw, attack the kraken, and begins to chew raw meat. Everyone looks at what Sonal is doing, confused. She tries to eat a raw kraken. Limit asks her to stop, otherwise her stomach will hurt. Ganel asks not to put everything in her mouth and asks where it came from, and Sonal says probably Uncle Fisherman gave it to her. After a few minutes, the silence of the fields was broken by a sound from the pit. William looks at Limit, Agnes, Gano, and Sonal. They're putting all their effort, and he thanks everyone. The field was dug well. Sonal sows seeds in the garden beds and eagerly thinks about how fast everything will grow and when it will be possible to eat it. William answers Sonal, growing food takes a lot of time. It's not like making items. Here everything is completely different. You need to slowly watch how the plants grow and feed them with fertilizers. They shouted loudly to Claire's. Sonal complained she is hungry. At that moment, one of the mages shouted loudly. William jests. MC simply shines with pleasure. This is Mayor Markham from Hubbard. They enter the house and sit at the table, start drinking tea. The mayor says he only had to stop by briefly on business in the neighboring village. And in Hubbard, no one does anything anymore. They only talk about William's product. These dryers and windmills are spinning everywhere. William says that a few additional orders are coming in. It looks like there will be a lot of work, the mayor asks. He says that getting here is difficult, a real ordeal, because you have to go around the whole forest. Yes, such a thing exists, confirms William. The mayor tastes his tea and sincerely says, thank you. William suddenly came to life and with a sparkle in his eyes says, what if we build a road right between Hubbard and the capital? He wrote. The mayor's eyes widened in surprise. William continues, of course, this will greatly ease the movement of potential clients, but the truth is that we need to get permission from Minister Gora. Markham replies, great idea, the townspeople will be delighted. On such a positive note, the conversation ended, and they said goodbye. William called Ruddy for a moment and asked for help again. And now Ruddy is ready for another journey. The whole team is gathered and comfortably settled for the flight. They are heading to the capital. Having risen high, William looked around. To the left in the distance, numerous buildings were visible, and he said that was Hubbard and therefore the royal capital on the other side. Flying closer, William says that this is exactly what he expected. After a few days, the whole company is in the kingdom's capital. Ganel and Sonal walk down the street to the center. Sonal is fascinated by what she sees and emotionally impressed by how lively it is here, and Ganel asks her not to fall behind. They approach the city street lamp, and Ganel wonders if these are street lamps powered by glowing stones. Behind them walk William and Limit, while Sonal and Gandil shine with joy. Limit asks why they went to the capital, and William replies that they need to submit a report and ask Minister Gori for something. He sent a letter to the minister in advance and warned that it would be today. William continues. Moreover, says MC, looking at the friends walking ahead, Sonal and Ganel came with them, who have never been to the capital, so this trip will be useful for them and broaden their horizons. In the minister's reception, they were met by a nice, seemingly intelligent girl in glasses with long, beautifully styled hair and a fashionable business suit. Long time no see, William, she said happily. Yuri's glad to see you. Hello, William. Yuri's is Minister Gori's assistant. She warmly greeted all the guests and smiled as she announced that the minister would be free soon. Soon they entered the minister's office. He was sitting in his chair with a monocle in his left eye and apologized for the trouble, and William replied that there was no need to apologize. Glad to see you again. And who is this? Asked the minister, peering through the monocle and looking at those standing before him. Limit bowed and greeted, sincerely saying she was glad to meet them. She is Limit from the House of Verg, and the House of Verg is extremely glad to see the minister in good health. William then introduces himself. Next to him are Sonal and Ganel from the Emerald Island, and they also say their names. The children of the Saxon leader, the Minister of Specifications, reports that from letters he learned, Mr. Fried communicates with William clients, and William is becoming livelier. It seems even more of them will come. The minister laughed. William also laughed. So what are we talking about today? The minister is taking up the matter again. William modestly and nervously extends a rolled-up sheet of paper held in his right hand. He says he wants to get permission to build a road. Road, said the minister with a hint. William unfolds a map of the surroundings on the table before the minister and says that his goods are very popular among the residents of Hubbard. The workshop's clients will soon increase, so now he wants to lay a path from Hubbard to his workshop. On the map, he shows the road construction plan, comparing the existing path and the proposed future one. Then William says he intends to continue the journey to the capital. The minister is delighted with these plans. William explains to the minister that the only way to deliver magic ore from Hubbard to the kingdom of Melki is through sea. With the appearance of a land trade route, trade turnover will sharply increase. Do you want that? This will also benefit our country, says Minister Jurus, present at the meeting. The minister replies, William, this plan has already been discussed, but clearing the dense forest is a huge expenditure of time and money. The minister looks the host in the face and continues, they would be grateful if William himself took on this matter. Can the government rely on him? The minister tries to find out. Meanwhile, Jurus stands behind and smiles mysteriously. William patiently listens to the minister's speech, and when it ends, confidently says, yes, you can rely on me. The minister sincerely thanks for the business proposal, of course gives the go-ahead for the work, and adds that he can sleep peacefully. He trusts William. So the surroundings of his home will become something like a transshipment point, says Gory with a smile. The minister suddenly changed his tone, raised the index finger of his right hand, and asked William in a passionate voice if he really wanted to found an entire village. William simply froze at such a proposal and did not know what to answer. Great idea. Calming down a bit, Gory says that you can build something like a hotel, use magic to make things, and start trading various goods. Yes, William says, stumbling over the unexpected proposal. Yuri's leaned toward the minister and said this, but unfortunately, the time allotted for the meeting was over, and the minister nodded understandingly. Yuri stands up and asks William to forgive her. He is busy with some matters, and before leaving, asks not to take everything to heart. All right, William agrees. The gang returns to their cabin, and William thinks, wow. He only asked for permission to build a road, but instead, he was offered to build an entire village. William realizes that their scale has somehow grown, but it sounds interesting to him. He recalls the series of events that preceded this. Meanwhile, at Barnett's trading house, Mr. Barnett is furious again, slammed the table with all his might, and shouted, what is this? Could it be that the House of Verga is really poaching Williams's clients and even helping him? Laston bursts into Mr. Barnett's office and immediately exclaims, Dad, it seems that orders from the Kingdom of Merkis are also being cut. Kingdom of Merkis, Barnett says indignantly. Laston begins the trade guild agreed with the military bureau of the Kingdom of Merkis on priority rights and a port for goods, but lately, it is clear that there are people who do not like this, and attempts to revise the agreement seem to be starting. Mr. Barnett, having listened to the information, says, well, and adds about the former Minister of Foreign Affairs Merkis. He received so many bribes and lost his position so easily, he turned out to be useless. Gory removed him. Wait a minute, Barnett said thoughtfully. Is this Williams somehow connected to Gary? Laston's face changes, but he continues. Minister Gory is a key figure among those advocating for the treaty revision. William is trying to destroy their company. Laston summarizes. Last says that in William's client list, there was the name of Minister Gowrie, and he begins to check the list. Damn you, exclaims the outraged Mr. Barnett. Thunderstorms have started everywhere. The rain has not stopped for several days. William and Limit stand by the window and watch the weather closely. When will this rain finally stop? Says William. At that moment he notices, the first tiny sprout has appeared in the sown field. Insanel, full of curiosity and joy, rushes into the field despite the heavy rain. She runs up and gently, lovingly covers this small and still weak sprout with an umbrella from the bad weather. Later Limit, together with William, continues to look out the window at this wonder of nature with undisguised admiration. In the Eurydian Valley, the rain has not stopped for several days, and the rivers are beginning to overflow their banks. Despite all the efforts of the people to reinforce the dams and embankments, under the pressure of the water, they begin to collapse. The destruction of the crossings begins. The time has come to clear the forest and lay a road that will connect Hubbard with the capital William, and the company get to work. After a short labor, the hero wipes the sweat from his face and mentally notes, this forest is really too dense now. It is clear why the kingdom had not ventured here before, and a thought flashed that maybe it was worth trying something. William pulls out his sacred staff wriststake, and everyone around freezes in surprise. Limit asks if he is okay, and Agnes jokingly wonders, does he still know how to cast spells? William answers quite seriously, actually he has a contract with the staff, and he thinks he can use it. Just entering the forest, William swung his staff, striking the ground without regard, and shouted, Wind, clear the path through the forest. The entire friendly company behind him watches with interest what is happening. A vortex immediately forms in the air. The whirlwind subsides, and everyone, even William, silently watches. They are overwhelmed and speechless from what they have seen. Let his voice urge you to ignore everything and keep working. William pondered. He had never used magic in his life, and crafting was not the same as throwing fireballs. It turns out now it's just a toy. He thinks he sees him. You want to learn to create real magic someday. William replayed in his memory everything that had happened to him until today, and thought he had a chance to be born anew in this world. At that moment, the approaching sound of hoofbeats was heard. A writer appeared, a blond man with short hair. He rode up to her on horseback and asked to confirm whether he was the skilled craftsman William, and confirmed it himself. The writer enthusiastically says that he is a Norman from the Knight Order of the Kingdom of Merkis. An urgent request has just arrived. William is asked to restore the Oredian Bridge. The Norman explains in detail that after heavy rains the river overflowed its banks, and the Oredian Bridge that spanned it is partially destroyed and now impassable. The Norman was invited into a hut to talk. They sat at a table and began drinking tea. He explained in detail that this bridge is an important crossing on the highway connecting the capital with the neighboring state. There are detours, of course, but to use them one must make a large mountain loop, and on the road there is such a narrow spot that for horse-drawn carts it is a real hell. William listens and remembers that the road is indeed terrible. The Norman continues to tell everything he knows. The minister Govery himself personally requested the repair of the Oredian Bridge. He asks William to come to the kingdom's aid. The main character loudly says, "I understand everything, I'm going immediately." Ruddy was called for help, and he, as always, is already ready to go. William announced that he is leaving, and Gannel and Sonner are going with him. He is ready to craft everything needed right on the spot. Gannel suggests taking some materials with them. Sonal is very happy about the opportunity for a new trip. Limit angrily tells her that there will be no time to fool around here, they will have to work seriously, and there is no reason for fun. After saying goodbye to everyone, the three of them set off. Limit sadly sees them off and watches as Ruddy takes off. Agnes approaches and says, "Ma'am, this time there is nothing to be done." Agnes says that right now they can barely help the victims. She suggests, while William is absent, let's watch over the house together. Limit does not take his eyes off the sky and watches how Ruddy's silhouette disappears in the distance. William and the company arrive in the Ureta Valley. They are met by Jurus, who says she has been waiting for them and came to inspect the affected areas instead of Minister Gory. William greets her, and Sonal is delighted to see that Jurus welcomed them. The situation has become very serious, says Jurus, and everyone tensely watches how the river has washed away entire spans of the bridge. She adds that not only the bridge but also the nearby village is damaged, and a rescue team from the capital is expected to arrive soon. Suddenly hearing a voice behind him, he turned around and saw a gray-haired, bearded, respectable man who said that they had not seen each other for a long time. Mr. Bird recognized him. William. Mr. Bird began to tell. Minister Gary said that he asked William to restore this bridge and call for help. William gathered craftsmen and immediately rushed to the site, and after listening to Mr. Bird, he said that with you everything will be much easier. William returned to Gennel and Sonal and passionately explained that Mr. Bird is a carpenter, the leader of a group of incredibly skilled craftsmen whom he has long been indebted to, and Mr. Bird immediately asked, "Tell me, how can you help? They are ready to do anything." William approaches the Bird Brigade and greets them. They are all happy to see each other. One of the workers says, "William, there were rumors that you left the guild barn, and we were already upset that we would no longer be able to work together." Another adds that he is glad to be on the same team again. A third laughs. Working with him is always full of surprises. Today is a real celebration, and another adds, "I can't wait for this to start." Examining the aftermath of the destruction, Bird says that they have cleared almost all the debris, shards, and trash. They are really fast guys, and William is surprised. The foreman, one of the workers near the bridge support, calls Mr. Bird. He calls you, "Come, look what I found." William and the Bird ask what happened and run to him. Run to the support. Mr. Bird sees with surprise signs of deliberate damage, broken stones near the base, and says that it seems someone tried to destroy the bridge support. What does he mean? William explains, and Bird says that it was a deliberate attempt to destroy the bridge. Jurus listens to the information about the incident and says that this bridge is an important trade route connecting the country with its neighbor, so these villains are against trade with neighboring states. This is the work of opponents of the treaty revision, she continues. William is nearby and thinks about which treaty is being discussed and who these opponents are. He does not fully understand this information. Jurus explains, the thing is that Minister Gory is now trying to amend one treaty. She explains in detail the treaty concluded by the former foreign minister of the Kingdom of Merkis. It contains a secret clause. Their country is obliged to buy military and other goods exclusively from one company, like a secret conspiracy. Because of this contract, the Kingdom of Merkis cannot freely trade with other companies and countries. William, with a tremor in his voice, hesitantly asked, "Do you mean Barnett's guild?" "It was Barnett," Jurus replied awkwardly. William recalls the character of Mr. Barnett and says he has known him for a long time. He is fully capable of such a thing to continue sucking all the money from their kingdom. He will go to any lengths and stop at nothing. Jurus says that cannot be true. Are they really building this bridge? She has no proof, but the chance is very high. Bird turned to William and said decisively, "The bridge must be restored immediately." "Yes, of course," William confirmed. The crafting skill includes enhancement, increasing the parameters of created items, repair fixing broken things, and creation generating items from materials. William decides to use repair. He feels the full scale of the ruins restoring the bridge will be a large-scale task, with incredible mana expenditure and dozens of hours of work, yet they begin the restoration together. Soon all participants in the restoration work saw how well everything was done and were simply delighted. William announced that the repair of the Eurydian Bridge was completed. To avoid new problems, tomorrow they need to go upstream and build a dam against mud flows. William also noted that all the builders who participated in the repair were confused and did not understand what a dam against mud flows is. The next day everyone went upstream. The main character explained that a mudflow dam is a structure that holds back logs and large stones washed away by rain so that floods do not repeat along the way, and Jurus says they will soon reach the sources. On the road, Sonal and Ganal smell a strange scent in the air. Sonal exclaims, "William, it seems someone is following us." MC asks again, "What does that mean?" They move on, and Ganon says that it seems they are being watched from afar. They have already escaped. "Maybe those are the ones trying to destroy the bridge," Yuri suggests. At that moment, Bird, who is walking a bit ahead, calls William to look at what is happening there. The main character approaches the river and sees a collapsed structure made of logs and torn ropes. It seems there used to be a simple retaining wall here. Liam says in surprise, he could not even imagine that such technologies are passed down from generation to generation in these parts. He bent down and picked up the rope. William examines the rope and finds traces of a clean cut on it. He is sure that someone deliberately destroyed the retaining wall, and because of this, the dam broke. Jurus listens to all of William's conclusions and says, "What a horror." The main character is sure the new structure must be reinforced so that such a thing never happens again to the village at the foot of the mountain. He asks everyone not to waste time, and to get to work ask everyone to gather stones and wood from the materials. At that moment, footsteps were heard on the hill, and from above sharply came, "Stop." Opposite them, a crowd of men of different ages in the most diverse clothing, shouting at William and the company. What were they doing on their territory? Jurus thinks they are bandits. William asks them if they were the ones who were conducting surveillance. A bandit in a hood shouts that William and his people invaded their territory, and a bandit with a mohawk asks if the bridge collapsed because of them. When he is asked about surveillance, the one in the hood replies that he does not understand what we are talking about. All the robbers shout in chorus. In any case, it is not worth pretending to be the master on their territory. If you value your life, they will demand to give everything you have. With these words, they rush to beat William and his company. Suddenly, Sonal jumps up and hits the first robber accurately. He does not keep on his feet, and the rest of the robbers stand in shock at such a turn of events. Mr. Bird calls the vanguard of his master to battle. Hand-to-hand combat begins. Sonal and Ganal rushed swiftly into the fight. William looks at the builders from the beer team. They seem to him extremely strong and powerful, and he is impressed by how skillful they are. The hand-to-hand fight does not subside. One of the bandits, the bald one, grabbed the lawyer by the neck and put a knife to her throat. She tries to call William for help, and the bandit demands that she be silent and behave decently. Lawyer William S. is taken hostage. He shouts into the void and does not know what to do. Sona and Gano are already far away. They are fighting their opponents. He looks around and sees that the fight is going on in every corner of the field, so all the others are occupied as well. William suddenly realized that he could not even use his combat skills and wondered what to do next. At that moment, some noise was heard. A girl with a spear appeared on the battlefield and rushed into the fight. She decisively demands that the robber immediately release Jurus and calls him a miserable scoundrel. William watches all this with interest and recognizes the girl. The robber sharply turns his attention to the warrior, shouts, "What do you want?" and attacks her. The girl manages to dodge the attack and neutralizes the bandit by stabbing the spear into his back. He falls face down. Sonal and Ganal see the fight and rejoice, while Bird and the brigade are worried. The girl rushes to Jurus and anxiously asks if he is okay. Jurus sincerely thanks her for freeing him. William rushes to them and loudly shouts the main speech. Jurus asks in shock where this stranger knows William from. The beautiful brunette, having recovered after the fight, apologized and introduced herself. She is Kino Takebana from Moonlight. One of the masters anxiously tries to recall Moonlight, while another exclaims, "Wait a minute, this is the strongest group of adventurers everyone is talking about." In response, Akino simply says that she is the daughter of their leader, Ari Takebana. "Here it is, no wonder where such strength comes from," the bird exclaims. "Just cute," Sonal shouts. Surprised, William asked how she got here. "Something wrong with Snowpeak," he means the spear. Akino looks at the saber, spins it in her hands, and replies that this little one is still sharp. She says she learned from her mother that William was having difficulties, so she immediately rushed to help. William heard that the Averg family is poaching his clients, but have they really reached the Moonlight group? She knows well that, setting out on the road, she first visited his new home. There she met Verga's daughter and asked her about everything, after which she went straight to the Oridian bridge. When she finally found them, she noticed some bandits plotting something bad, so she hid in ambush and waited for her chance. So everything is clear. William realizes the situation, so the smell came from her, Hennel adds nearby. Kino is upset and simply furious at such words. She tries to explain that she ran as fast as she could, and that's why she was sweating. William Combs is upset and says that is not true. Sonal just has a good nose, that's all. In the end, everything turned out well, and Sonal joins the conversation. Bird asks what to do with them, and points to the tied-up bandits lying down and demanding to be untied immediately. Yuri's appears frightened and with a blush on her face, thinking that she will first kindly lead them to the capital and then ask a couple of questions. They are all on the riverbank, water splashes, and William sinks into thought. He wants to start building the dam as soon as possible, but whatever happens, first he will have to deal with their guests. They fixed the Iridian bridge, so it's better to continue work tomorrow. Suddenly William sees Kenneth. She leans over the tied-up bandit she defeated, tries to wake him up, and demands that he get up. The robber regained consciousness and does not understand where he is. He only remembers just walking in a flower field with his grandmother, and Akino smiles looking at him. She thinks she hit him quite easily. She looks him in the eyes and says that he needs to stop this business before it becomes too late. William watches what is happening, and the event of previous days appears before his eyes again. The thief who stole the Moonlight equipment was finally caught. William witnessed how Iri punished the thief. She rushed at him and began to beat him brutally. He begged for mercy, but Iri did not stop. Kino decisively intervened in the situation and demanded that her mother stop torturing him. Iri replied that the scoundrel is a thief. He stole the equipment, and it will not go unpunished. Kino tried to object and justify the thief with possible good reasons he might have had. Iri then explained that for adventurers, equipment is a matter of life and death, and stealing it is the same as trying to kill them, but Akino could not agree with that. William also wanted to intervene in the situation, but he was restrained by the Moon Adventures. They said it was better not to approach now. The thief begged for forgiveness, but Iri did not stop gagging him, beating him with a whip and trying to strangle him. Then the main speaker rushed to the thief and asked if he was okay. Iri tried to stop the main speaker. The thief continues to ask for forgiveness. He cries and says that his son recently went blind. He heard about some famous healer in the capital, but he had no money for treatment. His wife died of illness, and the son had no one left but him. He begs for mercy, falls to his knees, and bows his head to the ground. Kino sees all this and ponders. Iri does not believe the words and demands that they stop talking nonsense. She is terribly angry. Then Kino approaches the cart with belongings, pulls out some item, and goes to the thief with it. Kino turns around and extends, "Take this, one of my collectible weapon specimens. It has no name, but it can bring a lot of money." The leader of Moonlight tries to stop her, but Akino turns to him and says that these are her own things, which she bought for her hobby, and such an act will not affect the combat capability of their group. Saying this, she hands the weapon to the thief. Mary asks if Akino really believes this man, and she answers that her heart whispers he is not lying. Hearing these words, Iri thought for a moment, then left. A few days later, William and Akino met alone, and William asked if Ari had apologized for that incident. Kino asked again, "Does he mean Mom?" MC said that Iri quite quickly after that event received a thank you letter. They said that the son of that bandit underwent treatment and saw again, and Akino learns about this for the first time and is wildly happy. And also William gives you a new weapon that he made himself. Akino takes it, looks at it with admiration, and says how beautiful it is, Snowpeak, and William adds that it was a personal request from Lady Iri, which made Akino quite confused. The protagonist recalls, a little later after that matter, Arya invited him for a talk and asked to create a worthy weapon for the next leader of their party. Looking him straight in the eyes, she said, "William, she hopes for him. The task will not be easy." Ari said she wants the keynote to take her business under control in the Moonlight. She was confident that the keynote would become even stronger. She has a special gift, sincere kindness, and the ability to understand people. Together with her, the Moonlight will shine even brighter. Akino listens carefully to everything William says and cannot believe it. She is filled with gratitude for the received weapon and sincerely promises to take care of it. We return again to the Uridian Valley. The events take place near the restored bridge. William gathered all the builders involved in the repair and decided to show them something. Aquino, anticipating the development of events, asks what he means. "You will see now," William replies and calls out, "Come on, Sonal," and on the shore he crafted a small model of the riverbed with transverse obstacles. Sonal begins pouring buckets of water, and it rushes down, carrying stones, branches, and debris with it. William explains that he created this model to show how the debris barrier works. It holds back stones and trees, but lets water and gravel through the gaps. Everyone present watches with interest how this structure works. William explains how the dam performs its long-term task. Hennel suddenly sees something in the distance and exclaims, "William, look." Everyone turns in the direction he pointed and watches as huge, slender columns of people approach. Norman appears at the head of the column, announces that he has arrived with reinforcements from the capital, and William gives the order to start rebuilding the village. This time in Barnett's guild. The guild workers sit at the table playing cards. The youngest, a blonde, says it's boring. "Yes, orders have noticeably decreased," confirms an experienced worker, William's former partner, a bearded brunette. "Will everything be all right?" "Ask the blonde." Mr. Barnett stood by the window of his office and looked outside with obvious, deep displeasure on his face. At the same time, he crumples some important document in his hand. The entrance door creaked. Last entered the office and addressed his father. Mr. Barnett walked around his desk and sat on a chair. Then he began to tell. "They say the Oridian Bridge has been restored. Isn't that too fast?" he asked. Mr. Barnett, settling into the armchair, says it seems Minister Govery hired that vile scoundrel William, perhaps, and finally suggests. Barnett, lowering his head, quietly explains. "The bridge has been restored. Now trade with other countries is possible, and the Kingdom of Merkis will definitely break its secret agreement." Laston spread his arms wide and asked what his father should do. He asks Laston not to rush and adds that everything needs to be well thought out. Mr. Barnett, after a short pause, revived and smiling, declared, "Let the Kingdom of Donal and the Kingdom of Merkis start a war." The last one here, and he doesn't even understand why. Barnett says that war creates a huge demand for weapons, and that's true, but who makes weapons for Donal? The last one, and thank you. And Barnett smiles and continues, "Their company makes weapons." Laston smiles and says, "Father, you are as inventive as always." Barnett coughs in response and adds that Laston will have a lot of work ahead. In the Ureti Valley, life is boiling. After rebuilding the bridge, a dam was built against the muddy stream, and Norman thanks William for the work done, saying that the Arden Bridge and the dam upstream are now ready and Minister Gary will surely be pleased with such a quick restoration. They stood on the hill and looked at the abandoned fields and forests. William sighed, saying that it remains to return people to normal life, but it seems it will take a very long time. Norman only pressed his lips in response and said that the rest is their business. Behind William, "Here you are, William." He turns around and suddenly, Mr. Beard appears before him in the company of several men. Beard introduces them to William. One of them, a short-haired blonde with an open face, warmly greets William, introduces himself as Creed, a resident of this village, and thanks him for the help with repairs. And he says that Mr. Bird said that William is building the village. William was stunned by such an attitude. Gathering his thoughts, he begins to explain that halfway between the capital and Hubbard there is not even a village, only his farmstead. Local men do not stop. They have a request. Will William allow them to settle in his village? They ask with hope in their eyes. The main characters' belongings. Due to the downpour, their fields were washed away and their livestock taken, so they still cannot work and no one knows when they will go back to the fields. If only they could, they would stay in their village, but they need something to eat. They learned that Mr. William is founding a village, and they thought their experience could be useful in the new place. William was glad to hear this and said that, of course, he would gladly accept them. He had just started gardening and was still a novice, so their help would be very useful. All the residents gladly accept this decision of the city council. William assures that as soon as he returns, he will immediately start building houses for them. A question sounded from behind him. Did we forget someone? He turns around. A bird stands before him and squints. It says, "Yes, William does cool things, but being alone is hard, and that's true." Before going to rest, the bird is ready to help build the new village. Voices sound, "Bird." The bird turns around, sees the approaching master builders, and says that they also want to work with William. William help first. MC addresses them and sincerely thanks for everything. Bird promises the builders that they will not be bored. They all stood nearby, looking at the fruits of their labor in the Uridian Valley, and felt that something new awaited them ahead. William thought that new residents had appeared in his new village, and he was very happy about it. In William's hut, she sat completely alone at the table, a cup of fresh tea steaming before her, but she had no appetite at all, so bored that she wanted to cry. Agnes gently calms her. William will return very soon. She looks out the window and exclaims with delight They have returned. Limit, let's go meet them. Limit joyfully jumped out of the shack and shouted, "Glad you came back." William announced that he had returned, and pointing to the people nearby, suggested getting acquainted with the new residents of the village. Limit froze in shock. For her, this is a huge surprise. Kino approaches first and says she is glad to meet and work together from today. "You are from Moonlight, aren't you?" Limit exclaims in surprise. He quickly recovered and said he was glad to see her. Akino greeted her in response. William leads the new residents and introduces them to their future home. He raises his hand and says that the royal capital is visible in the distance, and over there he points a completely different direction. Construction of new houses in the village is not yet in full swing. Kino and Agnes are working hard preparing timber for construction, and the servants, joking and laughing, bustle cheerfully, washing dirty clothes and linen. Gentle notices that William is standing on the construction site confused and thoughtful, approaches MC and asks, "What happened, William?" He plunged into thought and asks if Ganel remembers that situation with the bandits. The whole story played through his mind how they were attacked by bandits and how they had to save Judah, and William adds that, of course, he really doesn't know how to wield a sword or magic, but thought that at least some weapon for self-defense wouldn't hurt. Since that is so, he decided to use this magical or to create something. Meanwhile, William pulls out a piece of or in his hand, resembling a spearhead, says he obtained it in one place and that it is special, it can absorb magic. "Wow!" exclaims Ganel excitedly upon seeing it, and MC says he decided to make a knife and asks to see it. He begins to magically spin a piece of magic, and in a moment he turns into a sharp knife. Hannah looks with sincere surprise at these magical transformations. William holds a ready knife in his hand and says that if the enemy has no magic, the weapon loses its special power, but still remains deadly. Sudden rumble. William and Gandalf fell silent. The Limit falls back along with the buckets in which she carried water. William rushes to her and shouts, "Is she okay?" Rising, she explains that she was carrying water to water the garden, but stumbled. William and Agnes help her up and calm her down. William gazes at the path along which the water was rushing. He understands that the water is far away, and the road leaves much to be desired. Gano runs up and starts a conversation. They want to bring in livestock, so the farm will need much more water, and William agrees. After some thought, he decides it is time to bring water to the village and announces this to everyone. But everyone is eagerly interested in how to do it. The main character decisively says that they will build a water wheel. Bird, who is nearby, joins the conversation. "The water wheel is a great idea," Gantel exclaims. "Let's get started on crafting right away." William dreamily says, "We have enough firewood, but there are not enough metal parts to make it." So he continued, "We need to go to the capital for shopping." Kino immediately announced that she would join William, and the main character froze in surprise. He is very astonished by this decision. Limit is shocked and hysterically shouts that he will go. Ruddy's abilities, he sets off for the capital. And here is the kingdom's capital. They stroll through lively shopping streets, first entering a metal goods store, then a bookstore where William buys technical literature to study the designs of water wheels and other mechanisms, and after that they make other purchases at the city market. Evening is approaching, and William is surprised the shopping took much longer than he planned, but they bought many things and even seedlings for the garden, and Limit joins the conversation. When they leave the market, William says he does not want to go home at night, and Ruddy sighs it is hard for him to fly in the dark. He decided that they should rent a room in a hotel and spend the night in the city, and the girls did not object. They go to the nearest hotel, and as soon as they get there, William approaches the administrator and asks if there are any free rooms. He adds that there is a separate room for the ladies, but a shared one will suit him just fine, and the administrator, a respectable gentleman with a thick beard, nods understandingly. How else not altogether, that imposes its own restrictions. A voice sounded behind me, "Mr. William." William turns around and in front of him stands a smiling female lawyer. He asks what she is doing here. She replied to the guard who reported their arrival as soon as he noticed them at the entrance to the capital. As soon as she found out, she immediately rushed after them to talk about the incident on the Oridian Bridge, says Jurus, looking at the floor. William replies, "I understand." MC turned to Limit and Akino and advised them to settle in and rest because he would have to leave on business. Yes, they answer, giving their consent. Meanwhile, William and Jurus enter the bar, sit at a table, and Jurus hands him a glass of beer and starts a conversation they haven't drunk together for a long time. "You are right," agrees William. "But he was hoping for a regular dinner, sipping beer," says MC. By the way, regarding the robbers from that day, the jurors recall. Jurus begins to tell that, after the interrogation it became known, the mercenaries received orders from the familiar Raven. "Familiar," said William significantly. They have a familiar, he continues, so it's a witch, she is their leader. For now it's unknown, replies Jurus. A secret agreement between the kingdom and the merchant guild says that Jurus was useful not only to Barnett. This affected not only their interests, but also the interests of everyone around. Apparently, many people looked hostilely at the minister, who was going to review the agreement. William continues, if Barnett is behind this, he will not just show his tail. Jurus says that soon there will be a conference to review the trade treaty. Security in the capital has been strengthened, but she fears that opponents of the agreement may arrange sabotage. She continues, the minister is against such measures to strengthen security. He wants to deepen cooperation with various countries and regions to enrich the country, and she wants to help him. Jurus begins to panic and shouts, come on, William, do you understand what we're talking about? So I understand, he replies with a smile, but she still does not calm down. The main character realizes the lawyer is beginning to show a bad addiction. He does not want to drink, ask the slightly drunk lawyer. William knows that when she gets drunk, she starts bothering everyone. He nods and says, yes, he drinks. Jurusabs directly states that she just wants everyone to be happy. She hates those who try to grab all the wealth for themselves. They were still sitting at the bar, and the lawyer persistently demanded that he keep drinking. He pretended to agree, and William saw in all this a clear pressure through drinking. Having drunk so much alcohol, MC got quite drunk. In the morning, already in a bad state with a headache, William barely drags his feet to his hotel, and on the way remembers that the lawyer made him wander with her until dawn. And in the morning, as if nothing had happened, she instantly rushed to work, saying she had to prepare for a meeting. He could not believe that after such a night she could run to work. Good morning, William. That is exactly how Limit and Aquino greeted him already at the hotel. Limit added that he looked as if he had just risen from the dead. Only after hearing these words did William finally come to his senses. That was how their shopping at Capital Ants went. Altogether, they returned to the village on Ruddy. Wasting no time, they immediately set to building. William sets out to craft a water wheel, a huge wooden structure with blades inside and buckets outside that scoop water. William explains, the first step is to build a dam in front of the water wheel to create a height difference and increase water pressure. Buckets attached to the wheel grabbed water and poured it into a trough, and William continues to explain. Water will flow through the trough and pour into a reservoir, and Ganel is already standing nearby, holding his breath and waiting for that moment. The sound of water trickling in the trough is heard, and Ganel exclaims joyfully, now the livestock has water. The water moves relentlessly and is already filling the channel built by the inhabitants. William beams with joy now the fields can be watered to the fullest. The main character thanks Mr. Bird for help in building the dam, says everything succeeded thanks to him, and Bird modestly replies, no need to thank me. Now the fields and livestock will be fine, the bird cheerfully chirps on. William replies contentedly, yes, and everyone around is also very happy. Now a strange sound is heard. Ganel says he heard something. He also confirms William. Let's go, and everyone rushes to run toward that noise. What happened? Limit shouts confused. Even the key speech asks, give boundaries so that it is possible to move forward. Right now on a steep wall-like bank, hanging by all her strength on a thin branch, is an unfamiliar girl with long hair. She was asking someone for help. William runs out to the shore first, rushes to the cliff and tries to find out if the girl is okay. William says he will help now and orders Gandalf to pull the vine, which he is watching. Gantel quickly completes the task. William says, wonderful. He ties himself to the free end and, like an experienced climber, begins to descend to the girl, while everyone else helps him and pulls the liana. Reaching her, William grabs her and they are pulled to the shore. The frightened girl on her knees explains that she slipped and fell from the shore, and sincerely thanks for the help given. Kino wonders, what is she doing in such a place? The girl asked for their help. Unknown people broke into their village. William silently pondered the news about the invasion of the village. The village was attacked. They asked the girl, their voices trembling. William wonders, why did this happen? The girl introduces herself, Slay from the village of Taste, and says that on the outskirts of their village lives a witch's family. William thoughtfully considers this. Slay continues, telling that one day the girl's mother, a hereditary witch, announced that she had run out of ingredients for the potion and needed to go out to find more. She left her daughter under the care of the village elder and his wife, and went away. This had happened more than once before. But yesterday, something completely unexpected happened. Suddenly, several men with axes and cold weapons broke into the headman's house and kidnapped the child. At that very moment, bandits surrounded the village. Slay says she waited for the right moment and finally managed to escape. She kneels before William and his companions and explains that she is heading to the capital to ask for help. She dreams of reaching there as soon as possible and contacting the knights, so she continues moving, overwhelmed with anxiety. After hearing the information, Beard says it will take several more days to reach the capital, and not only that it will take even longer before knights come in. Kino opines. William thought there is currently a conference in the capital. All forces are thrown into security, so it is unknown how many knights they will be able to allocate. Ganny adds, did those who attacked the village deliberately choose this vulnerable, defenseless moment? William suspects that the witch is involved here too, and a recent conversation with Yuri's comes alive in his memory. He was convinced that there were those who clearly sought to disrupt the contract review, and Mr. Barnett's thoughts surged again. William asks Slay to help him get to the village, and she truly understands why. In response to her puzzled look, he resolutely declared, I will save your village. William called Keynote, Sonal, and Ganel and announced that they would help together. He turns back to the bird and asks if he can contact the order. Yes, of course, the bird replies. He passionately says that he wants to go with the bird to the capital. The bird looks stunned at this. William tries to stop her, but Limit insists that on her horse they will reach the capital faster. William has no arguments. At that moment, Agnes adds. She was sure that Lady Limit's connections in the Night Order would still come in handy. She never doubted this for a moment. Beard confirms the daughter of the Averg family truly has great power. William agrees with the arguments. He turns to Limit and says that he believes in her and trusts her. Limit replies that she is glad to help. Agnes, Limit, and Bird immediately rush to the capital on ladies' horses. William, Aquino, Ganel, and Sonal, with Slay nearby and with Reddy's help, set off on the road to the village of Taste. Soon they found themselves on the outskirts of the village. From a small forest, William and the company carefully survey the surrounding village areas. MC handed Ruddy into Slay's hands and ordered, if it becomes dangerous, do not hesitate to flee. Slay agreed. The group headed towards the residential houses, and when they approached the village fence, Gentle noticed guards at the entrance. Kino goes first and suggests moving forward to William. Stop, sir. He thinks they have no idea how many bandits are inside. With a sly smile, he suggests making a bandana out of his gloves. So what? Asks Sonal. The main character says he has a great idea. He smiles. And he says it will be called Operation Reunion, and everyone looks on with tears of joy. The whole company wearily waits to see what will happen next. The guard at the gate is a fairly young blonde boy who is clearly bored and already beginning to yawn, showing that he wants to sleep. William and Sonal approach him, pretending to be locals. William says, here it is, the village of Taste, and the guard, hearing their voices, reluctantly turns to them. I'm here too, brother, says Sonalix. Yes, it seems so, agrees William. Everyone else fell silent in their hideouts and watch what is happening. Aquino, who is watching closely, says she doesn't like this idea, and nearby Ganel asks did they invent the bandana to hide Sonal's ears. The guard approaches William and Sonal, sternly asks if they are locals, announces that the village is closed, and demands that they leave. William asks him to wait. He began to explain that there are rumors their missing mother supposedly lives in this village, and they and their sister walked a long way to finally get here. Sonal plaintively asks, will we see Mom? Yes, of course, William replies cheerfully. William says painfully that their mother left them in a church shelter when they were very small. She must have had her reasons. The guard joins the conversation. Sonal begins to cry. The guard became nervous. The story touched him so much that he even shed a tear, and William and Sonal did not expect such a reaction. The guard cries and says that William had to constantly protect his little sister, and they survived as best they could like two abandoned kittens, and completely moved, he begins to wipe his tears with his sleeve. He says he understands them and will help find their mother. Is it true? William and Sonal asked in unison. The guard wipes his eyes and tells them that he also grew up in an orphanage. He understands their feelings like no one else. He opens the gate, letting William and Sonal in. Watching from the side, Ganel exclaims in surprise, well then it worked. The cinema advertisement worked. Meanwhile, the guard leads William and Sonal into a secluded, abandoned house. On the way, he sternly warned that if it became known that he let in someone not from the peasants, they would all be in trouble. When they finally got inside the house, the guard said the house was empty, and from here they could observe everything happening around. William and Sonal sincerely thanked him for his help. The guard approached the window, opened it slightly, said it was lunchtime and everyone was going outside, and suggested looking to see if the person they were looking for was in the crowd. On the street, a command to line up was heard, and it was announced that food was being distributed. William watched this through the window, glanced at the neighboring house, and wondered if that was where the villagers were being held hostage. The guard asks if he sees anyone familiar. William says he can't say for sure, to which the guard chuckles and asks if he has completely lost his memory, doesn't he remember his relatives, but softening his tone a bit, adds sympathetically that William was still a child and only has memories of childhood left. The guard continues, saying that life, as he sees it, is really hard and he understands that. At that moment, Sonal asked inquisitively, "Where is the witch?" The guard becomes alert and asks again, "Are they interested in the witch?" William tries his best to dispel his doubts. He begins to tell them how his mother said that a witch lives in the village, apologizes for their behavior, adds that his sister always dreamed of seeing the witch, and spreads his arms wider to sound more convincing. The guard says that the witch's daughter is kept in a distant hut. Sonal smirked at these words. She leans over and sticks her head through the gap of the half-open window to get a better look at the hut, but the bandana catches on the frame and flies off her head. The guard glanced confusedly. Animal ears were sticking out on Sonal's head. This surprised him. He firmly states that they are definitely not brother and sister, and besides, she has a tail. Sonal grabs her by the head and William is tense. He suddenly grabs the guard from behind with his hands, presses his palm to the guard's mouth, and orders him not to scream. William holds the guard tightly and calmly says, "Listen carefully if you keep doing this. Then orphans will appear in the world, forced to live in shelters." The guard does not understand what is happening. He asks sadly, are his problems because he is an orphan? He begins to explain that he was lured by a gang of cutthroats. They say there is a village somewhere where some evil lives, and you can easily earn money there. Only he insists that those who oppose the changes to the treaty are definitely involved in the attack. Changes to what? The guard asked again. The main character explains that trade in their country is currently distorted by one agreement, so wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few. William continues, in the capital they are preparing changes to the treaty, and if everything succeeds, trade will become freer, and many people will benefit from it. But if this agreement is not changed, and only a few chosen ones continue to live as before, inequality will only increase, and crime will not stop growing, says William. The most affected by this are defenseless children, and he knows this pain very well, doesn't he? William asked the guard. The guard reflects on these words. He begins to recall his past life, how he wandered and starved. After a short pause, the guard sighed and said that it is hard for him to understand what is happening now, but he definitely does not want anyone to experience the same fate as he did. He is absolutely sure of this. Meanwhile, Aquino and Genel are pressed in the hideout, and do not look away. Aquino quietly asks if William is okay, and Genel replies that so far no sound is heard. At that moment Ganel shouted, "Here is William." Aquino and Genel look, what is happening with this misunderstanding? William approaches them and asks if they were worried about them, and Aquino asks who else they brought from Sonal. A tall young guard smiled and introduced himself. His name is Kenneth, and he is sincerely glad to meet them. He says that he talked with William and decided to switch to the other side. Aquino was surprised by his decision to change sides. William intervened in the conversation and promised to tell all the details of his decision later, but now they need the village map. Kenneth agreed. He begins to draw the village plan on the ground with a stick. Everyone froze and looked at him intently. Kenneth finishes the last line, puts down the pencil, and tells them where everything is located. First of all, the village head's house and the places where the villagers gather. Kenneth points to a house a little beyond the village, where the witch's child is hiding. William says that everything is clear. First they need to save the witch's child, and then free the mayor's house. They head to the lonely house. It is guarded by two men. Kenneth is the first to approach the entrance and greets the guards with a smile. They respond and immediately ask why he is here. After all, he should be on duty. Ganel and Sonal appear behind Kenneth. He tells them that he found a few more children in the village. At that moment, Ganel and Sonal attack the guards, engage in hand-to-hand combat, and hit them with their hands and feet. The girl was sitting on the floor, tied to a post. From beyond the room came the sounds of blows and cries of the fight, and she understood nothing. The door flew open, and William bursts inside. The protagonist anxiously asks if she is okay and says he came to help. The girl with fear in her eyes. Ganel also runs into the room, and with relief in his voice, exclaims that she has finally been found. The main character says his name is William. They are from a neighboring village and came to help as soon as they heard about the attack. The girl tries to explain something, but she is too upset. Words get stuck in her throat. William asked what happened. She says that this is her staff, picks up the object from the floor, and explains that it is a magical staff given to her by her mother. When she was captured, the staff was broken. William Asser is supposed to hand over the staff to him. She hesitantly extends it and asks what they will do with it. William asks Ganel to find a branch, and he says he will find one, then rushes away. In a moment, Gano returned with a twig and, laughing out loud, said that William will now show his magic. William makes a new handle for the staff from the branch, attaches it to the main part, and firmly secures it. Finally, the staff was repaired and given back to the girl. She takes it in her hands with admiration. Kenneth, standing behind the main character, wonders if William really knows how to craft. The girl hears the question and asks, "Isn't this the same William who was nicknamed Jack of all trades?" William asks in surprise how she found out about him, and Ganel and Sonal, standing nearby, are no less stunned. The girl loudly declares that her name is Mamia, and her mother is the witch Marjgerie. William asks in surprise, "Lady Marjgerie, Sonal doesn't even know who they are talking about." The girl thanks him for the repaired staff, and triumphantly exclaims that now she can go help her mother. William asked what kind of help she meant. Mamia explained that she heard it from two guards who were lying unconscious after a hand-to-hand fight. She says that when the guards were talking to each other, one asked if they had caught the mother of that girl, and the other replied, "It's hard to believe they managed to catch that witch. She is like a monster." She does not stop guessing where her mother might be, but Mamia knows nothing. William asked Kenneth if he knew anything, and Kenneth snapped that such information is not shared with a person of such low rank as him. He suggests questioning those who were in the mayor's house. William says, "We need to go and free the locals." Meanwhile, near the capital's watchtower, a group of armed people gathers. A cruel, tall blonde shouts to the crowd, "Does everyone have weapons on them?" The crowd raises their hands and in unison with a roar replies, "Everyone has swords, daggers, axes, and other weapons." A specially made cage was also brought on a cart, in which the witch Marjgerie is kept. She is depressed, and her mind is filled only with thoughts of her daughter Mamia. Events move towards the kingdom of Merkis. Norman arrives at the kingdom's capital. He greets the guards and asks if there is any news. The guard greeted him in response. He says that meetings are currently taking place in the city to review the terms of the agreement. They remain vigilant. The opposition's actions cause concern. The sound of horse hooves approaches. Norman turns around and cannot believe his eyes. A pair of horses galloped up to them, and one of the riders loudly announced that she is Limit from the Avert family. She has urgent information. It must be reported immediately. Meanwhile, in the village of Taste, events continue to unfold. William and his companions set out to free the local residents from captivity. Kenneth leads everyone to one of the abandoned houses. He suggests hiding here for now. On the way, Hanel asks William how he knows Mamia's mother, and William asks in surprise, does he mean Mrs. Marjgerie? MC says that she is an incredible sorceress and very skillfully develops magical tools. He explains that when he worked at Barnett Trading Company, she bought materials for him so he could make these tools. Mamia, overwhelmed with despair, whispered, "Why did the bandits kidnap Mom?" William replies that he has been thinking about this from the very beginning. After all, if Marjgerie is not an ordinary person, then perhaps someone decided to take revenge on her. Genel returns to Mamia and gently asks her not to worry. He swears that he will kill all the villains. Kino smiles and says that everyone is with her and everything will be fine. Mamia already feels better and thanks everyone wholeheartedly for their support. William looks at his entire company with a smile. MC abruptly stops everyone and announces aloud, "First, the residents must be freed, and only then gather information for further actions." According to Kenneth, the residents are held in two houses. William suggests splitting into two groups. One of the groups is already approaching the first suspicious house where the residents are. The guards at the entrance are exhausted and sleepy. Henel, Sonal, and Aquino caught the moment and launched an attack with lightning-fast, skillful movements. They disarmed two guards. In her hideout, William and Kenneth silently watched the security of the second house. The main character said he trusts Kenneth to make the first move. Kenneth nodded and replied that he understood. He steps out of the house and calls the guards of the second house, waving his hand. They respond to the call, and seeing that it is Kenneth, one of them says that he is probably, as always, skipping his watch. Kenneth suggests entering the house. He heard that there are several hot, interesting magazines there. The guards exchange glances, approach Kenneth, and enter the house. It is dark inside the house, and they have no idea where to go to find those magazines. At that moment, they find themselves tied up from head to toe. Mamia uses capture magic. Kenneth says, "Keep it up, Mamia." William declares that now it's his turn to show his abilities. He says that for this, he uses old metal and wood. Within minutes, he builds a cage and locks the captured bandits inside. William, Kenneth, and Memi stand in the house completely satisfied. MC says that at this rate, they will make it by morning, and at that moment, Sonal enters the house. At the threshold, she says that everyone has already been caught. All the bandits are tied up and guarded by Ganel and Aquino. William is impressed by their agility and speed. After that, the neutralized robbers were placed in a cage that William made, and Kenneth glanced at the team, and with a satisfied smile said that they are all very strong and he admires them. After these events, all the residents are free. Overwhelmed with joy and happiness, they begin to hug each other. One of them turns to Mamia and thanks her for the rescue, but she says that they should not think about her, and the people who came to her aid. William says that Slay asked them for help. The man falls to his knees before William and asks how he can repay him. William says that the best thanks is to see all the residents alive and healthy, and asks to return if he finds out where Marjgerie is. The man replies that, unfortunately, he does not know. Aino says that they will have to interrogate the bandits, but they insist, we know nothing. They were just going to attack the village and steal valuable property. William asks whose orders these were. The bandit replies that the orders were given by a man they do not know who. This man was given orders by someone, so they do not know who the real leader of the whole gang is. William thought and suddenly realized there are too many people in the chain of command. Is it really necessary to interrogate all the bandits to get to the truth? At that very moment, a raven appears in the sky, lands on Mia's hand, and William freezes in surprise. Mamia says that this is her mother's household spirit, and the main character is shocked that it is connected to Marjgerie. Mamia asks the raven let him tell her where her mother is. They tell her that it is an old castle in the southwest. Mamia understands that her mother is probably there now. William and the company received this news and decided to set out there. And so, with Ruddy's help, the whole company heads to the castle. On the way, William could not stop thinking about that familiar raven and remembered that during that event on the Ardean Bridge, they said all the instructions came from her. William continues to torment himself with thoughts about whether Marjgerie is breaking their agreement, but he does not believe it after all. She herself was kidnapped, so he is sure that there is some significant reason behind it all. At that moment, a large group of armed people gathered near the castle gates. They shouted loudly that they would destroy the royal capital and moved forward. They shout demanding money for this girl, Marjgerie, who is being carried in a cage on a horse-drawn cart. An unknown hooded man approaches the cage, his face hidden. He calls Marjgerie and calls her a witch. He coldly asks if she is ready to carry out his task to kill Minister Gory in the castle, and reminds her not to forget, her daughter is a hostage. Marjgerie is chained. She asks how she can kill the minister if she cannot use magic, and the man says he will free her when the time comes. She is furious at her fate and at the shackles that bound her. Marjgerie recalls that some time ago, she left home to search for materials for magical weapons and left Mamia in the care of another person. Walking through the forest, she suddenly heard a stranger call her. Before me stood an old man in a hood, his face barely visible in the shadow. She asked him, "Who are you?" He continued the conversation and began to say that he did not expect her to leave her daughter alone in the village and go so far away and for such a long time. Marjgerie became upset and asked him to repeat what he said. At that moment, a man approached and put handcuffs on her. His partner also appeared, and she could no longer resist. Then the stranger said he needed her help. Then instructions began to come from the unknown man, including regarding events in the Arshan Valley, and she continued to follow them, not suspecting at all what they aimed to achieve. And now she understands. Their main goal is the secret assassination of Minister Gory. She knows the minister is a rather selfless person, but despite this, he has enemies. Marjgerie thinks she does not want to kill the minister, but what is she to do? She silently asked Mamia to wait. Suddenly voices sounded from the sky. The stranger raised his eyes, burning with curiosity about what was happening, and Marjgerie also looked up and immediately recognized that voice. Rudy flies over the heads, on his back Mamia, who is shouting to have her mother returned. Mamia, Marjgerie barely uttered. Mamia waves a wand and directs magical power straight into the crowd. The whole group Aino, Ganal, and Sonal bursts into battle. A fierce fight breaks out. A stranger near the cage shouts that everything is going badly and hurriedly rushes in an unknown direction. Marjgerie shouts, trying to stop him, but suddenly hears someone calling her name from behind. She turns sharply and sees William right in front of her. She asks why he is here, and he only says he will explain everything later. "Why are you wearing handcuffs?" he asked. "They suppress my magic," she replied. William draws a dagger, and Marjgerie asks where he got such a weapon. William says he will free her now. He was glad he had managed to make such a useful tool in advance. William manages to remove the handcuffs with the dagger. Meanwhile, Aikido continues to fight a stronger enemy. She suddenly realizes they are too strong and there are many more of them than her. At that moment, a deafening thunder sounds in the sky, and a blinding lightning cuts through the space. Freed from captivity, Marjgerie breaks out of the cage, full of strength and energy, and angrily declares that now, having returned her daughter and her magic, she asks for the right to punish her tormentors. All armed rebels raise their heads and look at the sky. Among the lightning flashes emerges the silhouette of an unknown creature. The lightning intensifies and brightly illuminates the crowd of armed men, who are extremely frightened. A fiery dragon appeared in the sky. It is the storm raven from Marjgerie's magical weapon. It simply burns the rebels with its scorching flame, and within minutes the battlefield is strewn with corpses. William whistled on the spot. Ganel exclaims in surprise, "Wow, wow." Aquino is amazed by such magical power. Marjgerie watches the scene with admiration, and Mamia runs up to her, shouting, "Mom." She runs up and throws herself into her embrace. Marjgerie kneels down, hugs her daughter, and says she is very happy because she is healthy. Mamia, with relief in her voice, said that William and his people saved her. Marjgerie asks William, "Where did you come from?" The main character hesitated for a moment and could not answer immediately. Marjgerie turns to her daughter and anxiously tries to understand whether she is telling the truth or still deceived her in front of the villagers. She says she should be more careful. What would she do if she were caught? In the end, she was saved only thanks to William and the others. William returned to Marjgerie and said that they were all infinitely happy that she was alive. But he has a question. Marjgerie begins to accuse William. With a serious expression, she says that if he had not left the company and continued, as before, to sell her materials for magical weapons, she would not have left her home, and no one would have attacked Mamia and the peasants. William froze at these words and even slightly opened his mouth, and Marjgerie laughed in response and said that everything she said was just a joke. The main character froze and thought he could not believe that the invader was secretly preparing to kill Minister Gory. "William," someone is loudly calling him here. He turns around and sees Limit rushing towards him on a horse, and behind him numerous horsemen. She jumps off the horse and begins to explain that they arrived in the village of Taste, but they were told that William and the others went to the old castle, so they came here. Next appeared Norman and immediately asked, "What happened here?" William shows him the fresh battlefield, strewn with bodies. After the meeting and conversation, they set up camp for the night near the castle walls. While the group is not yet ready to sleep, they approach the castle walls to look around. Mamia is intently looking at the building in the distance, and Aquino asks her, "What's wrong?" Mamia says that she is seeing this building for the first time, although she read about it in a book. "This building is really huge." Gantel joined the conversation questioningly. He didn't think such a gigantic structure could be in the capital. Mamia, hearing the word capital, jumped up in surprise. Ganel said that William took him to the capital when he was there on business. "What capital?" Mamia asks, adding that she has never left her village before. Ganon says that the capital is teeming with people and bursting with various delicacies. "And that's not all," he continues. Mamia and Ganel talk to each other so enthusiastically that they don't notice the late night at all. Keynote and Limit, who went out to look for them, find them talking. Do not intervene, just smile and watch. And William comes out of the castle gates and says that it is already night outside. He sees the whole group waiting for him. William asks in surprise if they really haven't slept. He is invited to dinner. William and Gandalf sit at the table. Agnes serves the plates and says that everyone has already eaten. William thanks her, and with a smile says that he is so hungry he could eat a horse. William chews slowly, and sighing, begins to tell that preparing the report for the entire Order of Knights took quite a lot of time. But nothing can be done about it. It's about the plan to kill Minister Gory. The chief reporter joins the conversation, and BMC says that she is right. William continued, and with a slight smile, said that checking the details of this case will be quite easy. But those who have already been interrogated know nothing about the one who ordered the murder. He is still active, so he is not so easy to track down. MC continues to insist that this is the work of those who oppose the overall revision of the treaty. Compared to the Great Bridge case, this plan is much more straightforward. The goal was to kill Minister Gory immediately. William remains curious. What force the conspirators intend to use if the treaty is revised? Marjgerie returned and said she had finished her business. Mamia rushed to her and hugged her joyfully. William says that Marjgerie did well. She explains that she used her familiar and helped people who promised not to tell anyone that she was forced to carry out criminal orders. "Wonderful," exclaims William. Mamia tells her mother that she was very worried. Marjgerie apologizes to her daughter. Marjgerie turns to William and asks if what the girl named Limit told her about building a new village is true. William continued eating, paused briefly, and swallowing, said that it is true, but they have only halfway completed this process. Marjgerie asks her daughter, "Do you want to go to the new village?" William even stops eating as soon as she asks this question, and everyone else present is also tense. Mamia is confused. Marjgerie continues, having seen Mamia's magic today, she realized that her daughter has become a true master and is very surprised by her abilities. But continues Marjgerie, only if Mamia truly wants to become a mage. Under the lonely moon in the night sky, Marjgerie looks into her daughter's eyes and says that she will have to leave the native nest and set out into the wide world. Mamia froze for a moment, then confidently replied that she was ready for such a step, and there was not a shadow of doubt in her eyes. Marjorie looks tenderly at her daughter. She turns to William and, with a challenge in her voice, asks if he has any objections. William smiles and replies, "Of course not." Marjorie is torn by conflicting thoughts. On one hand, she is happy for her daughter, and on the other, anxiety gnaws at her before the separation. The company is in high spirits and ready for new adventures. And deep night descends over the old castle. The whole company returns to the native village, and everyone immediately gets to their own affairs. He laughs loudly, uttering this phrase, "It doesn't work." MC begins to teach Mamia magic. She raises her staff again and asks if she is doing everything correctly. William smiles and says that magic is undoubtedly different in purpose than craft. At that moment, Ganel approaches them and adds that it is good that William is becoming a teacher. Kenneth, who works in the field, watches them from afar and says, "Keep it up, William." Janet approaches Kenneth and greets him. Kenneth responds. Janet asks how he is doing in the field, and Kenneth sincerely says that all his success is thanks to William. He never thought that this kind of life awaited him. Kenneth says that during the liberation of the village task from bandits, he was also arrested and thrown behind bars. Former cellmates began shouting that he was a traitor. He thought he would not survive, and at that moment someone called out to him. William, the main hero, called representatives of the Night Order, and without hesitation began to tell that Kenneth helped to liberate the village. Kenneth was released, but only on the condition that he would remain under William's supervision. Then DMC approached Kenneth and asked him to help build the village, and he swore in response that he would start life with a clean slate. Kenneth continues. At that very moment, he suddenly shouted at the top of his voice that he would follow William all his life. He returns to Ganel and asks if he has not forgotten about the matter with William. Ganel recalls that he almost forgot. He sharply addresses William and shouts, "William, we have guests." An unexpected guest is the head of the village, Velgan Atkins, a bald, respectable man with a beard and mustache. William meets him and leads him to the hut. Atkins inspects the 3-story house and says with surprise that he did not expect this small hut to turn into such a large house, and William explains that it is so the number of people in the village is increasing, so it is necessary to increase the number of residential houses. Atkins enthusiastically says that the village has become much livelier. William replies, explaining that some of the new residents are from his native village. William invites Atkins to enjoy the achievements of the new village as a token of gratitude. They enter the house and settle at the table to drink tea. William loudly says that he personally received a letter from Minister Gory. Atkins emphasizes that this was even written about in newspapers. William says that it seems the review of the contract is in full swing. He says sadly that because of this, his daughter is now always busy and has completely forgotten about him. "Who is his daughter?" suddenly asks Limit, who is present during the conversation. William apologizes and asks if he had mentioned this before. He says that Akina's daughter is named Yuri's, and everyone asks with surprise, "Really?" Atkins savors a fragrant cup of tea and says that his daughter is not even married yet. Although she is already at the best age, she is following her own path, he adds gently. Atkins asks William, "When you next see Yuri's, tell her to visit her father more often because, due to all these problems, he has started drinking and already looks like a drunkard." He puts the cup on the table, leans down to the floor, and says that he almost forgot about the gifts he brought. Atkins lifts the basket with seedlings and places it on the table. He says they are engaged in plowing and cultivating field sorrente. William and the company accept the gift with great joy. Atkins says that during the growing season, they often hold festivals to ensure a bountiful harvest. He suggests, let's organize something similar in the new village. This idea awakened great curiosity in William. Later, William gathered all the villagers and addressed them with these words. Thanks to all the residents, the village expanded, and the number of people here increased significantly. He adds that this is out of gratitude for the work done and for further development. They are throwing a party. This news was unexpected, but brought incredible joy to all the residents. And finally, the long-awaited festive day arrived. For the convenience of the residents, special market stalls were set up on Main Street, and the village was decorated with garlands and flagpoles with flags. William and Limit go to see the results of the preparations and are surprised to see the streets come alive. Ganel invites Mamia to take a walk with him. William walks down the street and admiringly notices how everything is organized here. He is confident that it was the right decision to allocate a place for residents who know how to cook, because thanks to this, there were places where guests could eat. On the way, he comes across Bird and his company. They are happily enjoying excellent local beer. They were the ones who participated in building the shops. William recalls how he had to make missing tools and devices by himself. When they passed by the confectionery with Ganel, he became interested in the unusual shapes, and William explained that he made these shapes from metal specifically for baking. Ganel decides to take a risk and try the meat delicacies, takes a portion for himself. William laughs and says they don't have octopus instead, there is some cracking. On the street they meet Sonal, whose belly is bloated from overeating and she is barely breathing, so Limit rushes to her and asks if she probably overeated. For lovers of active recreation, an archery competition was arranged. Agnes hits all the targets without missing. William approaches to honor the winner, congratulates Agnes on her victory, and says he expected nothing else. In the final of the arm wrestling competition, Kenneth and Beard faced off. Fans froze. Everyone watched the match with anticipation, and Limit calls William to come closer. She looks at everything happening with admiration and says that she is seeing such a joyful celebration for the first time. William listens to her with a smile and says that the celebration is just beginning, and Limit does not understand what he is talking about. William returned to Mamia and asked, "Are you ready?" Mamia grabs her staff and goes to the center of the square, where a huge crowd has gathered. With one movement of the staff, she delivers a magical strike. Suddenly, a fantastically bright and colorful burst of fireworks explodes in the sky. All the spectators are delighted. "What beauty," says Limit. William says he asked Mamia to use some spectacular magic. The fireworks are still bursting in the sky above the village. William raises his eyes to the colorful spectacle and gets lost in distant memories. A picture arises in his mind. He is sitting at the computer desk, and in front of him are empty coffee jars. Suddenly, he hears the rumble of cannons outside the window and turns his head in that direction. He sees colorful, shining flashes of fireworks rising into the sky above the rooftops of high-rise buildings. All this happens while he is sitting at work in the office of a large company. His vision darkens, and he hears fragments of words someone is calling William. In border C in front of him are Mamia, Ganel, Sonal, and Aquino. They all gently say in unison that everyone is waiting for him and ask him to come with them. The celebration continues, and the dancing begins. William pauses for a moment and replies that he is coming. He remembers how he once thought he was alone in this world, but now everything is different. He has friends. William catches up with the group ahead and joins the crowd of dancers. Almost at the same time, someone cautiously makes their way through the forest. It is a stranger with long hair. The girl is dressed quite lightly, a shirt with rolled-up sleeves, short shorts, knee-high socks, and short boots. She holds a blade in her hands, the blade decorated with an unusual ornament, steps to the edge of the forest, stops by a tree, and intently watches the fireworks in the new village. The next morning, William, Limit, and Aquino set out for a walk in the forest. They wanted to look at the construction of the road to the kingdom's capital, and Limit thoughtfully asked himself whether it would take a little more time for the road to reach Hubbard. William says that thanks to everyone's efforts, we have achieved wonderful results, and believes that we need to head to the capital to tell about what we have done. Limit bursts out with a hysterical scream, "I also want to go to the capital," and Aquino picks it up and shouting, adds that he also wants to go with William. BMC decisively states that he will no longer allow any sleepless nights, and Limit and Aquino are offended by William's words. William, someone is calling him. He turns around and sees Ganel in front of him. Ganel says he brought lunch. William thank him in response. Sonal from MCS house is feeling. Ganel says that it seems she overdid it at the festival yesterday. William recalls that Sonal felt unwell yesterday. Her stomach was swollen. She had to lie down, and Lemmy came to check on her. Ganel sees an unfamiliar thing in William's hands and, interested, asks what it is. The main character shows him the object. It looks like an electronic tablet. He says that it is a magical energy detector. Gentle exclaims in surprise, could it be that William really knows how to make magical energy sensors? MC says that he once saw a mage technician who made such a device, and asked Mamia to help make the same one together. William believes that their district is full of evil spirits, and that the detector will help make it safer. William stands in the middle of the forest together with Limit, Aquino, and Ganel. Ruddy sits nearby. They continue to examine the detector, and William says that the device is still in the development stage because magical instruments are complex, so his detector currently has a limited range. Suddenly, shining dots appear on the detector's screen, and Ghana wonders, isn't this glow coming from their mana? William freezes for a moment, not understanding what it is. Unclear noises and suspicious sounds begin to grow around. The glow on the detector's screen becomes brighter and stronger. It is already starting to get dark in the forest. The whole group realizes that they are surrounded by a hostile force. Monsters emerge from the thicket. The friends are ready for battle. In one motion, they grabbed their weapons. Aquino asks William to protect the line. William understands everything without words. Aquino is the first to rush into battle with a monster like a partisan creature, several times larger than our heroes, and with huge fangs in its mouth. At that moment, Ganel bursts into the fight and undoubtedly demonstrates hand-to-hand combat skills. There are many monsters around. They attack from all sides. William cannot comprehend where so many monsters came from. He thinks it is probably due to active deforestation. The tree behind William turns out to be treacherous. One of its branches reaches for the main hero and grabs his right hand, which holds a dagger. Limit sees this and shouts to warn him, but it is already too late. William gathers all his strength and tries to break free from these claws, but he lacks the power. At that moment, an unknown force cut the tree trunk right at the roots. The tree falls and the monsters flee in terror. Limit watches, stunned. Aquino and Genel are puzzled. Genel sees how the monsters instantly scatter. William rises from his knees after the strange rescue, lifts his head, and sees an old acquaintance before him. It is the same stranger who is watching the fireworks at the edge of the forest. William turns to her and says uncertainly, "Lydia." They sit down and start a conversation. William asks if she is lost. Lydia answers that she is. She begins with a trembling voice to tell him what she learned from her grandfather about his trip to Virga and about his business contacts. After that, she hurried to help William reach the state of a Virga, but then got lost. Lydia says she wandered into the forest and saw lights rising, so she headed there. William suddenly realized Lydia was exactly at that moment seeing their festive fireworks from the festival. But in the end, she got completely lost. Everyone around her is now silent and listening attentively. She tells that she continued wandering through the forest and recently heard strange sounds, went there, and upon reaching a clearing, saw monsters attacking William and his companions. She had to intervene, and William listened to her and sincerely thanked her for the help. William turned to his comrades and announced that this girl is the granddaughter of the blacksmith Dennis. Kino asks in surprise, "Blacksmith Dooney," and Gano with unquenchable curiosity, "The legendary blacksmith." Lydia calmly hands William a rolled-up sheet of paper and says that it is from her grandfather. "From Dennis," asks the main character. William unfolded the paper and read, "Take care of my granddaughter." He understood that this was a message in Dennis's spirit. It all began with events that happened some time ago. William, accompanied by Ruddy, sets out on a journey. They pass nearby, and William suddenly remembers that he is already somewhere near the destination. Ruddy is starting this week, and the MC asks if he wants to know where he is heading. William happily says that he is heading to Dennis's workshop. He has an order there from the Avert family. The main character adds that he has an idea to establish cooperation, and that, according to rumors, Dennis is a peculiar person who rarely takes work. William got lost in memories. He recalls how once he saw a sword forged by Dennis, an incredibly beautiful one. Its beauty took his breath away, and how once he was walking through the forest and saw a little girl. When William approached her, she was standing with some unfamiliar book in her hands and crying. The MC asked her if everything was all right. At that moment, the girl opened the book and immersed herself in reading. William understood the meaning of the words. It was a book of spells, and he could not comprehend how it ended up in the hands of a child. The girl raised an unusual sword above her head and began to swing it. William only managed to shout, "Wait, she is not an enemy, don't do this." The blade of the sword was decorated with an incredibly beautiful ornament. The swing of the swing threw the girl off balance. She fell and fainted, and William and Ruddy froze in fear. It was already beginning to get dark in the forest. On his estate, Dennis was looking for his granddaughter Lydia. He remembered that he had sent her to the neighboring village for shopping, and the very thought that it was a very difficult task clearly showed how much his memory had deteriorated. Dennis sees William coming towards him, carrying Lydia on his back like a sack. Lydia joyfully throws herself into her grandfather's arms. After Dennis and William put Lydia to sleep, they sat at the table and started having tea, and Dennis began to tell them that the magical book he had given his granddaughter contained all the weapons he had forged. He continued to say that to create something, one must know everything about the subject down to the smallest details. Dennis said he wanted Lydia to surpass him in the blacksmith's craft. But she was so shy that it was difficult for her to express her thoughts. Dennis looked at his granddaughter, who was sleeping. He added that because of her clumsiness, she takes blacksmithing very seriously. Then Dennis said that as a token of gratitude for saving his granddaughter, he was ready to take on William's duties himself. He looked at everyone gathered and recalled that it was from this moment that his friendship with Dennis and Lydia began. Limit asks Lydia if she is hungry, gives her bread. Lydia replies that she is a little hungry. Aquino also offers food and invites her to help herself. Lydia, completely exhausted, whispers thanks to them with boundless gratitude. William is delighted with this meeting and with how everything turned out today. Meanwhile, in the almost forgotten Barnett company, events are unfolding as usual. Mr. Barnett pounds his fist on the table. He continues to shout that the attack on the capital, the murder of Minister Gori, and the attempt to frame the inhabitants of the Kingdom of Dal as the main culprits to start a war between the two countries, all of this turned out to be a complete failure. Opposite him stands Laston's son and asks his father to calm down. Barnett continues to shout that in such a situation calming down is impossible and that Laston also needs to think at least a little about all the problems. Finally, he smiles and says that he has already come up with something. He hands his father a scrap of paper and says that a client has arrived. Barnett became interested in this news. He takes the paper from his son's hands and reads it, and exclaims with surprise because it is the same thing. Lastly, smiling slyly, he tells his father that this guest came from the sea. Barnett and Last silently look at each other.